Chapter 1288. Aju spoke very seriously. That little tiger face was very cute and intimidating. However, such an unexpected proposal made Bai Juan a little confused. Get married? Why did the topic suddenly jump to marriage? Moreover, even if they were going to get married, shouldn't he be the one to say it? When Aju saw that Bai Juan had paused, she thought that he was unwilling. She was very overbearing and persistent. Little brother, you can't kiss someone and be irresponsible. It's decided. We'll get married tomorrow. Mommy had said that she had to confirm the relationship immediately. Otherwise, he would be snatched away by others. Little brother was so handsome. There must be a lot of people staring at him. She had to make the first move. Bai Juan looked at the determined look of the person in his arms and couldn't help but laugh. Aju, you haven't reached the legal age to get married yet. That's right. Aju was also stunned. How could she forget this matter? However, she said, little brother, if you don't want to get married immediately, you can tell me directly. I'll choose another. This time, before Aju could finish her words, Bai Juan interrupted her. Bring your ID card tomorrow morning. For what? Aju was a little confused. Bai Juan reached out and carried her over. The smile in his eyes made him look extremely gentle. Of course, we're going to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get married. Didn't you just say that I'm not old enough? In fact, she was just proposing. She didn't want to get married. Aju's tiger eyes widened. Bai Juan's voice was deep. If you're not old enough, then use some other methods. But I haven't prepared a dowry yet. Aju looked at that doll-like beautiful face and said, I can't let little brother be so wronged. I have to buy a ring and flowers for little brother. I also have to kneel down on one knee. Although I'm a monk, I still know the basic etiquette of a proposal. If little brother gets married to me like this, it will make you feel wronged. Ever since Bai Juan heard Aju's words, the smile on his face never stopped. He turned his eyes and kissed the corner of her cute mouth. You won't feel wronged. Just marry me. So easy. Aju was a little sad. I always feel that it's not right not to give you something when we get married. Bai Juan rubbed her long hair. No, I gave it to you a long time ago. When did you give it? Aju's round tiger eyes lit up even more. Bai Juan carried her over. Weren't you the one who gave me the cake? Alaska. That was clearly a birthday present, Aju muttered. Compared to the things that her little brother had given her, it was really far inferior. Why don't we go and get the certificate another day? Let me prepare first. Aju thought for a while and came up with such a method. Bai Juan's hand suddenly tightened. Then, he slowly said, tomorrow is a good day. There's only one good day this month. If we miss it, we'll have to wait for a long time. Isn't Aju worried that someone will confess to me? I'll get married tomorrow. Aju immediately made a decision. I'll make up for the dowry in the future. After Bai Juan's reminder, Aju finally remembered the purpose of her proposal. It was to occupy him as soon as possible. The time could not be changed. It would be fine if she waited for a day or two, but if it was too long, it would definitely be troublesome. Aju was still in Bai Juan's arms, calculating her own little abacus. That little scholar's look was simply adorable. Only then did Bai Juan let go of the strength in his hand. His deep eyes were filled with a faint light. Sometimes, happiness came too suddenly. It always made people at a loss. However, after he reacted, Bai Juan's IQ successfully came online. With one last guidance, he immediately made Aju agree to go and get the certificate tomorrow. That night, he really could not sleep. Even the breath of the person in his arms was sweet. That soft long hair rubbed against his cheek from time to time, and a faint fragrance seeped into his nose. The delicate body in his arms was also soft and warm. Hugging her was like hugging a small stove. To be more precise, it was a little sun. She had always been his sunshine. From the moment she wore a monk's robe and held a meat bun in her mouth, looking at him adorably and calling him little brother, he knew that he would no longer be the only person in his world. Anyone who had been saved by the sunshine would not want to fall into the darkness again. He was the same. Therefore, he had to keep her by his side, no matter what methods he had to use. The next day, Aju was carried out of bed by Baizhuan. Her eyes were still asleep. She reached out and rubbed them. She did not know where her little brother got a car from. It was a military Hummer. The license plate was very easy to remember. There was a red logo in front of it. Aju was bent over and placed in the passenger seat by Baizhuan. She looked left and right before she finally became energetic. When she thought about it, she remembered that she had proposed to him last night. "Little brother, are we going to the Civil Affairs Bureau now?" Aju asked. "Isn't it a little too early? It's all foggy outside." In the northern sky, the air would become bad as soon as autumn arrived. If one went out too early, they would usually see a thin layer of haze. The temperature was not like summer, which made one's whole body sticky. Instead, when the morning wind blew, there was a cold feeling. Even the uncle who swept the floor had not come out yet. The Civil Affairs Bureau should not be open yet, right? Aju was indeed right. However, she could not withstand Baizhuan's sometimes black-bellied overbearingness. "Don't worry, someone will handle the procedures for us." As he said that, Baizhuan took out his phone and made a call. On the other end, the director of a certain bureau was still sleeping soundly. One had to know that at their age, it was really not easy to sleep well, right? He had to prevent the tigress at home from checking on him, and he also had to drink and drink outside. If he did not have some psychological quality, he would not be able to do this job at all. Therefore, the director of a certain bureau was very persistent about sleeping. He had specially instructed his subordinates not to call him in the morning if there was nothing important. But on this day, for some reason, the phone on the bedside kept ringing non-stop. The director of a certain bureau flipped it over and over. When he saw that it was a number without a name, he thought that it was his subordinate, so he was immediately angry. "How many times have I told you? Don't call me in the morning. Which branch are you from? Ha! You don't even know this little rule. Tell me your name, I have to." Baizhuan. Master Bai's thin lips opened slightly, and he said two words in a faint voice. The director of a certain bureau on the other side shuddered and almost threw the phone in his hand out. He must be having a nightmare. Yes, he must be having a nightmare. He had been out of the army for so many years, how could he still hear this name? Let him calm down first. Calm down, the nightmare will wake up. The director of a certain bureau did not believe that this call was real, so he pinched his thigh hard. It actually hurt. This was not scientific. Chapter 1289. Was it not a dream? Viper Viper. The director of a certain bureau said the code name that he did not want to mention until now. Baizhuan smiled. "It seems that you haven't forgotten me, Weasel." "Don't call me Weasel." The director of a certain bureau immediately flew into a rage. Back then, his code name was so mighty and domineering, Yellow Emperor. However, he met a youth in the special forces. That youth was none other than their captain at that time, Viper Baizhuan. He was a soldier who was outstanding in all aspects, but he actually let a youth be the captain. At that time, he was quite unconvinced, so he tried to provoke him. Who would like to have a captain who was so younger than them, right? Who would have thought that as soon as he made a move, he would be knocked down by someone? Moreover, he was even given a code name that made him want to jump into the river, Weasel. No, Captain, can we discuss this? Look at how younger you are than me. At my age, I can already be your uncle. Can you not mention my dark history? It had been 2 years. The director's wife rarely saw her husband, who was already starting to have a small belly, talk to anyone in such a nice tone. After all, he came from the army and always had an arrogant air about him. Even her father had never been like this. The director's wife was inexplicably curious about who was talking to him on the phone. Who is it? She propped herself up and asked. Director Huang immediately took the phone to the other side and said very seriously, a former comrade. Comrade? The director's wife smiled. I've seen all of your comrades. Why does this sound so young? You just called him Captain. Director Huang immediately said, you heard wrong. Be good and continue to sleep. I'll go to the toilet to make a call. The director's wife was speechless. Be good. One had to know that her husband had never used such a word to her before. Usually, he looked like a proper person. Now, she looked at her husband's back as he hurried into the bathroom. For some reason, she smiled. After knowing him for so many years, she still didn't know that he had such a side to him. How should she put it? It was a little cute. Director Huang sat on the toilet like a weasel. He was afraid that his wife would hear something and even locked the door. Bai Juan asked slowly from the other side, was that sister-in-law? Why don't you let me say something? I'll let you say a few words, and we'll divorce. Director Huang retorted internally, but he didn't dare to say it out loud. Instead, he seemed to have realized something. How did you know my current contact number? He had clearly blacklisted all the people who should have been blacklisted, and even used a cancellation account to avoid this evildoer. Why was the other party so persistent? Bai Juan laughed. As he stretched out his hand to wipe the corner of Aju's mouth, he casually replied, Weasel, if I were you, I wouldn't ask such a stupid question. Director Huang. Will you die if you don't have a sharp tongue? Then why did you call me? It couldn't be to disturb his sleep, right? What time is it? Don't reptiles need to rest? Bai Juan retracted his hand and handed the soy milk and plain bag that he had bought very early to Aju. Then, he focused his attention on the phone again. It's nothing. It's just that I'm going to get married, so I'm going to get involved with you. This was the first time he had seen someone use their connections so confidently. Weasel, oh no, Director Huang was just about to scold the other party when his throat suddenly choked. Tell me, what are you going to do? He couldn't be blamed for stuttering. That person who had never even looked at women, even when the recruits in the army were watching movies, he would eat and read with an indifferent expression, was actually going to get married? He had always thought that he liked men. Was that not the case? No. He had to confirm it again. Well, is the person you want to marry a man or a woman? It was not impossible for a man. Otherwise, why would he use his connections? He could just go directly to the bureau chief to get the marriage certificate. He believed that as long as he showed a man's face, there would be a large number of women who would clamor to marry him without him mentioning his identity. Was there a need to use his connections? And he even called early in the morning. This was not normal at all. After hearing Director Huang's words, Bai Juan raised his eyebrows dangerously. Before he could answer, Aju, who was sitting beside him, swallowed the bun in her mouth and said seriously to the other side, I'm a woman, not a man. Director Huang was stunned. He thought that there was something wrong with his ears. Needless to say, this voice was really pleasant to hear. Captain Bai, I really didn't expect that you would really find yourself a girlfriend. was the world of fantasy. Bai Juan smiled and said, "Weasel, if you ask unrealistic questions again, I might bring them to your house one day." Director Huang knew who he was referring to. That group of problem soldiers were all from the Red Meow Party. They were really good at tearing apart people's karma. This was simply a threat, a blatant threat. Director Huang gritted his teeth so hard that they hurt. "I won't ask anymore, but does the old chief know about your marriage?" Bai Juan was the only grandson of the Bai family. If he really got married, the Bai family should have sent him an invitation long ago. Not to mention sending an invitation, the last time he bumped into the old man even said that his grandson was waiting for someone. He was still far from having a girlfriend. How could he get married just like that? "After the procedures are done, I will tell grandfather." Bai Juan was very calm. After saying this, he added in a low voice, "Right now, only you, me, and my lover know about this matter. If a third person receives any news, you should understand my methods." Hearing this, Director Huang immediately dispelled the thought of informing the old chief in his heart. I won't tell anyone." Bai Juan smiled faintly and said, "Director Huang is still smart." It was not easy for him to change from Weasel to Director Huang. Director Huang himself said that he was even more terrified. One had to know that if there was nothing important for him to do, Bai Juan would not call him Director Huang. "Captain Bai, what exactly do you want me to do? If you stick your head out, you'll be stabbed. If you don't, you'll be stabbed as well." Bai Juan started the car with one hand and put on a black military earpiece in his left ear. "Nothing. I just want to go to your place to get a certificate." "That's easy," Director Huang said very straightforwardly. "When the bureau opens at 9 o'clock, I will immediately call someone to get it done for Captain Bai." Bai Juan's slightly cold voice sounded again. It was low and deep, as if this was the first time in his life that he revealed his emotions in front of an outsider. "I can't wait until 9 o'clock. Chapter 1290. Director Huang was stunned when he heard the words on the other side. He had really never seen anything that Bai Juan could not wait for. Moreover, it was only 9 o'clock now. There were only 2 hours left. Was he really in such a hurry to get married? He couldn't even wait for more than 2 hours. "You start changing now and go to the Civil Affairs Bureau. I'll wait at the door." Bai Juan was still so logical when he commanded people. "I'll give you 20 minutes. If I don't see you in 20 minutes, needless to say, it was definitely a threat again." Director Huang was anxious. 20 minutes. The capital is so congested. What if I'm stuck on the road? Your house is only a 10-minute walk away from the Civil Affairs Bureau. After Bai Juan said this, he hung up the phone. Director Huang, on the other hand, felt goosebumps all over his body. Captain Bai actually knew where he was staying. Captain Bai was not someone to be trifled with. In the Hummer, Aju finished the bun in her left hand. There was still one left in her right hand. She had left it for Bai Juan. Seeing that Bai Juan had hung up the phone, she immediately handed it to him. Bai Juan held the steering wheel with his fingers. While waiting for the red light, his gaze fell on her bulging cheeks. His smile was very faint. "I'm driving. I can't free my hands." If Director Huang and the soldiers heard this, they would definitely vomit blood. One had to know that when Bai Juan was fighting in the desert, he could control the steering wheel with one hand and hold a submachine gun with the other. The speed of the car was as high as 100, and every time, he would swing his tail beautifully. Therefore, driving with one hand was not a big deal for Bai Juan. However, he acted as if he really wanted to eat it, but he couldn't. Aju knew that Bai Juan's stomach was not good, so she said with a small face, I'll take it and feed you. Okay. His goal was achieved. The blackness in Bai Juan's eyes increased a little. Ajou kept her word. She opened the plastic bag and brought the bun to Bai Juan's lips. Bai Juan lowered his head and took a bite. The smile at the corner of his mouth could not be hidden. Ajou also smiled. She did not know why, but she felt that this was very good. When she was young, it was always her little brother who fed her. Now that she had grown up, she could also feed her little brother. She tilted her head to look at the side profile of his heroic spirit. He was so handsome and noble that even the hair on his face could be seen clearly. He ate what she fed him. As long as he thought of this matter, even the air he breathed in seemed to become sweet. Ajou sat in the passenger seat and watched Bai Juan drive with her round tiger eyes. The first to give up was Lord Bai. Before they arrived at the destination, he parked the car by the roadside and reached out to unbuckle his seatbelt. He suddenly turned sideways, pinched her little chin, and kissed her. Ajou was still holding a steamed bun in her left hand. The pleasant smell of toothpaste mixed with the fragrance of noodles filled every cell in her body. The tip of her tongue was almost numb. Only then did Bai Juan end the kiss and gently bite her lower lip. His voice was hoarse. Don't always look at me. You will be affected. Oh. Ajou stuck out the tip of her small tongue and licked the place where Bai Juan had bitten her. Then, she smiled. At this moment, Director Huang had already arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau. The guard wondered why he had come to the unit so early. Director Huang didn't want to say anything, he just wanted to have some peace and quiet. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the energy to face the monster later. The drive from the apartment to the Civil Affairs Bureau was not far. In addition, there was no traffic jam at this time and Bai Juan's driving skills as the head of the Sanchi army. In less than 30 minutes, they arrived at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. The guard at the door was a local old man. The old man was still puzzled. What was going on today? Why did all of them come so early? Bai Juan nodded politely at him and held Ajou's hand as they walked into the hall. Then, they went straight to the second floor, the director's office. When the door was pushed open, Director Huang was drinking tea. When he saw the person Bai Juan brought, he almost spat out all the tea. Is she an adult? This was what Director Huang wanted to ask the most. But he knew that he couldn't be so direct when talking to Bai Juan. Ha ha ha, Captain Bai. Your lover is quite young. Director Huang put down the cup and wiped his glasses with a handkerchief. How could Bai Juan not understand the meaning behind that? He held Ajou's hand and sat down. His voice was indifferent. In this room, other than you, everyone is young. Director Huang was speechless. Damn it, how could he be so sharp-tongued? But he was indeed nearly 20 years older than the other party. He couldn't live anymore. This is my ID card and 1-inch photo of her. Bai Juan pushed the things over. His slender fingers took Director Huang's purple sand teapot and poured a glass of water for Ajou. Then, he continued, first, get all the information. Then, ask if we are willing to spend the rest of our lives with each other. Director Huang, are you the director or am I the director? You are a special forces soldier in the army. Do you have to be so clear about the process of the Civil Affairs Bureau? You usually have nothing to do but blindly study it yourself. This. Director Huang wiped his sweat and couldn't refuse directly. Well, Captain Bai, you know that your identity is special. If you want to get married, you have to get the approval document from the higher-ups. Only then can I let you follow the rules. When Bai Juan heard this, he took out another document from his handmade handbag. Director Huang looked at the content and date on it and was in a bad mood. You applied to get married the year you joined the army? Yes. Bai Juan answered Director Huang's words casually. He did not forget to turn around and tidy up Aju's long hair. Director Huang looked at this scene in disbelief. No one had ever made Bai Juan act like this before. It was as if he could smooth out all the sharpness on his body and only make people feel that slight itch. Had Bai Juan changed? No, he was still the poisonous snake that ate people without spitting out the bones in the past. But when facing this girl, even his eyes were unbelievably docile. There was almost no trace of fierceness in them. Did he tame a wolf into a dog? For some reason, Director Huang suddenly remembered what young Master Tang had said before. At that time, he was still wearing a well-ironed military uniform and stood in this position. His eyes were looking out of the window as he held a cigarette between his fingers. He said with a faint smile, "Old Huang, every soldier in China has the bloodthirsty nature of a wolf. When necessary, they can wait for an opportunity without hesitation and bite anyone's neck to death. However, they know very well that what China needs is not a wolf but a dog. Therefore, even if they have the blood of a wolf and can dominate a region, they don't do that. Instead, they obediently put away their sharp claws and disguise themselves as dogs. This is because dogs are more humble and loyal than wolves. What the country needs is also this loyalty, and it is the same for the person they love the most. You ask me why I don't tell my girl everything about me. You even feel that I am using another side to deceive her. Old Huang, why don't you think about it? Perhaps only when I am by her side would I rather be a dog." At this moment, in the same place, Bai Juan was also like this. How could this pair of uncle and nephew be so similar? Director Huang didn't know why, but he felt a lump in his throat. Afraid that he would really cry, he quickly suppressed his emotions and cleared his throat. At that time, you weren't even 19 yet. Why are you thinking so far ahead? What if you want to register your marriage and the person you marry isn't this person? A military marriage wasn't the same as a military marriage, it was already set in stone and it wasn't easy to change it. It was impossible to change it. I won't. Bai Juan only gave him 2 words and slowly took a sip of tea. Director Huang muttered, "How can there be so many, you won't? The army won't let you go. It's not certain when you can come back. What if the girl likes someone else, what will you do?" Hearing this, Bai Juan glanced in his direction. That gaze was extremely cold. Director Huang's entire body was frozen. He had just praised him for being docile, but now, he could simply kill. In fact, Director Huang did not know at all. Bai Juan was not afraid of anything. When he was carrying out a mission in the no man's land, his back was burned by the scorching sun. He was so thirsty that he thought that he would die in the desert. But even at that time, he was not afraid. All he wanted was to go back. Back to the country where she was. What he was most afraid of was the situation like what Director Huang had said. Even if one day, he was in a dazzling light, she would fall in love with someone else. But even so, he still submitted the marriage application in the first year. Because other than her, he would not marry anyone else. If she did not belong to him, he would be stationed at the place where he protected her. Of course, he still had the most direct and deep thought in his heart. That was to snatch. Just by looking at his deep eyes, Director Huang knew what Bai Juan was thinking. However, he also admired Bai Juan. How much did he like her that he would hand his entire life to another person when he was young and did not even understand the world? This application form really proved that statement. The bloodline of the Tang family, the direct descendants of the Bai family, were all iron-willed lovers. Without asking Bai Juan anything else, Director Huang took the ID cards of the 2 people and began to check the household registration information. Bai Juan's information was originally confidential. Without his instructions, ordinary people really would not be able to find out. Director Huang had long been prepared for this, so he even brought the USB flash drive. However, what he did not expect was that this girl's information was also encrypted. Director Huang frowned and opened the page. After looking down twice, he almost threw the mouse in his hand out. Captain Bai, she is Ju Wei Corporation's. Director Huang was even trembling when he spoke. Bai Xuan, on the other hand, was very calm. Don't tell anyone about this. Captain Bai. Director Huang wanted to go back on his words, so he seriously searched for the words. You should know that the two of you are not of legal age yet. Bai Xuan raised the corners of his eyes and smiled. Of course I know. Otherwise, why would I look for you, the director? Captain Bai, you can't cheat your own people like this. You know, right? The two young masters of Ju Wei Corporation, the big one is popular all over the world, and the small one controls the economy. Which one of these two people isn't a sister con? Even, ahem. Director Huang lowered his voice and said to Bai Xuan, even this girl's hidden information states that no one with the surname Bai can get close to her. Master Bai, tell me honestly, did they already know that you want to marry her sister? Bai Xuan did not deny it. They also have people in the army. My application information is right there, so of course they will see it. Is it really good for you to be so self-righteous? The key is that if I agree to it, what if the two young masters find out later? Bai Xuan naturally knew his worries. Don't worry, if anything happens, they will look for me first. They won't implicate you. Director Huang looked at those deep eyes. Perhaps it was because the memories just now had touched him too much, so he gritted his teeth. Wasn't it just a marriage certificate? Special circumstances required special treatment. Even if he was really implicated, as long as these two children were willing, he would accept it. Moreover, there was still the Tang family protecting him. Thinking of this, Director Huang sat up straight again and met Aju's incomparably clear eyes. They were quite curious, as if they were asking a director why he was whispering. Ahem. Director Huang coughed and straightened his attitude. He asked Aju, Bai Lijiu, are you willing to marry Bai Xuan? You weren't abducted or threatened? When Aju heard such words, she instinctively frowned. She did not forget to defend Bai Xuan at all. Uncle Director, little brother has never threatened me. Moreover, I was the one who proposed to him. I don't have time to buy a wedding ring yet. After I get the marriage certificate from you later, I will bring little brother to buy a wedding ring. Aju said it openly, but Director Huang's jaw almost dropped when he heard it. He had guessed the ending of the story, but he did not guess the beginning. She was the one who proposed this marriage. Wasn't it a little upside down? Captain Bai, aren't you the one who proposed? Director Huang looked at Bai Xuan with disdain. You have the nerve to ask a girl to buy a wedding ring for you. When Bai Xuan heard this, his smile became even wider. Why should I be embarrassed? After we get the marriage certificate, she will be my wife. Why should I be embarrassed with my wife? Director Huang was speechless. Had no one ever said that you were very thick-skinned? Then let me ask you now. Bai Xuan, do you really want to marry Bai Lijiu? This time, Bai Xuan did not use any half-smile tone. Instead, he was very serious. Even his voice was deep. I'm sincere. I won't marry anyone but her in this life. Bang! A very soft sound followed Director Huang's finger. A small stamp covered the 1-inch photo of the two of them, turning into a small red book. And Aju's household registration information on the computer also changed from unmarried to married. Chapter 1291. Beside President Song were a few other executives in the industry. When they saw him like this, they all guessed the identity of this young man in front of them. Bai Juan did not give them any chance to see Aju. He stretched out his left hand and pulled Aju into his embrace. He let her face lean against his chest and said indifferently, "I just came back a few days ago." When President Song saw that he was talking to him, his face instantly bloomed with a smile. If the old man knew that you were back, he would definitely be very happy. 2 days ago, the old man kept talking about young Master Bai. When Aju heard old Master Bai's name, she raised her little face that was buried in Bai Juan's arms. Bai Juan supported her and glanced at President Song from the corner of his eyes. When President Song saw this situation, he knew that Bai Juan did not want them to see the person in his arms. He hurriedly said, "Young Master Bai has something to do first. Let's walk around casually. When young Master Bai has time, I'll treat you." Bai Juan did not say anything. He only replied with a calm yes. When the salesperson saw her boss's attitude towards Bai Juan, she did not know how to hand over the pair of rings in her hand or whether she should remind the lady to pay the bill. President Song was also a smart person. He quickly saw through it and immediately said, "What does young Master Bai want? Wrap it up for him immediately." This meant that Bai Juan was not going to pay for it. The salesperson immediately said, "Yes." She quickly handed the exquisite packaging bag in her hand to Aju. However, Aju did not take it. Her eyes were as dark as the night. "I'll pay the bill first. I'll come back to get it after swiping my card." "Pay what bill?" President Song chuckled and said, "Young Master Bai came to get something. How can he pay the bill?" "Miss, just take it as a token of my appreciation." Bai Juan's deep eyes moved away from Aju's face. He was about to speak. But he was interrupted by Aju. Her voice was very polite and unhurried. "Little brother is the same as ordinary people. When you come out to buy things, you will pay the bill. Moreover, this was not bought by little brother, but by me. So I can only thank this gentleman for his kindness." President Song did not expect to be rejected. He still wanted to use this opportunity to get closer to the Bai family. How could it be? "Young Master Bai, look. Mr. Song, you're not convinced and still want to say something." At this moment, Bai Juan smiled brilliantly. "This pair of wedding rings was bought by my wife as a token of love for me. President Song, don't you want my wife to express her love for me?" How could this be?" President Song subconsciously waved his hand. When he realized what Bai Juan had said, his expression suddenly changed. Your wife. A love gift? When did you get married?" Probably because she was too shocked by the news, she accidentally asked the question that was in her heart. Bai Juan laughed softly. He had no intention of hiding it. Today. President Song really wanted to ask if Old Master knew about this. But asking like that would mean crossing the line. But he was still very curious, especially about the girl lying on young Master Bai's chest. But even when she was talking, young Master Bai was there to protect her, so he only saw half of her face. Obviously, Bai Juan did not want these people to see Aju. He took out a black card and handed it to the counter clerk. "There's no password. Go and swipe it." Aju moved again. She looked like a small animal. She had agreed that she would pay the bill, but she also knew that it was best not to argue with the little brother on such an occasion. If there was anything, they could settle it when they got home. When Aju thought of this, she became obedient again. Bai Juan lowered his head and looked at her little face that wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, when he saw the child lying in his arms and not saying anything, he could not help but touch her cheek. "When we get back, you can return it to me." "Yes." Ajou liked the feeling that she did not say anything and the little brother knew what she was thinking. The counter clerk was at the side and handed over the black card that Baizhuan had swiped with both hands. After Baizhuan took the card, President Song immediately made way for them. When the rest of the people saw that Baizhuan had left, they started to ask at once, "President Song, who was that? Why does he look so extraordinary? He even dares to not give you face." President Song loosened his tie. "The young master of the Bai family, what face does he need to give me?" Bai family. Which Bai family?" President Song replied, "Which Bai family is there here? You're saying that he's the mysterious Bai clan, that's right. When you see him in the future, you have to avoid him. No one can afford to offend this person." Those people weren't thinking about hiding or not. They were thinking about networking. "I really didn't expect young Master Bai to be so young and so good-looking. I've heard people say before that he was still in school at that time. He was already an influential figure in the courtyard. But didn't they say that he went to join the army? Is he back? Why is he married?" "That's right. He's actually married. Is this for real?" President Song was amused when he heard this. "All right, I know what you guys are thinking. You girls can save it. What young Master Bai said is false. You guys saw young Master Bai's attitude towards that girl just now. He protected her the entire time and didn't even let us take a look. It can be seen how good he is to people." At this point, President Song turned his head and asked his subordinates, did they come to choose the ring themselves? Were there no soldiers following behind them? The salesperson didn't expect their CEO to speak to a small employee like her. She immediately shook her head. "It's just the two of them. It seems that the young lady brought the gentleman here and said that she wanted to buy a ring for the gentleman. At first, they thought that the gentleman was being kept. They didn't expect that his background was so big that even the CEO had to be respectful to him. Moreover, there was that black card just now. It was a limited issue. Not everyone could get it. Only the super VIP users of a certain bank, who had a certain amount of influence in the world and had a distinguished identity, could get such a black card. Who would have thought that such a man's wedding ring was actually bought by a woman?" The few presidents were also shocked and they heard the salesperson's words. Asking a woman to buy a wedding ring, however, Ajou felt that it was nothing. The jade she was wearing was enough to buy a lot of wedding rings to play with at home. These were all given to her by Baizhuan. Now, it was her turn to use a pair of wedding rings to trap her little brother. No matter how she thought about it, she was the one who had profited. Baizhuan saw that she was smiling in his arms. He raised his eyebrows and asked, "What are you so happy about?" "Of course I'm happy to take advantage of you." Ajou was happy. Her little appearance was also very cute. Baizhuan smiled faintly. "If you like to take advantage of me so much, why didn't you agree to express your feelings to President Song just now?" Chapter 1292. That won't do. Ajou's face was serious. "It's already hard enough for you to guard the border. As your wife, I can't drag you down. If I accept other people's things, what if they rely on you? Little brother's righteousness can't be tarnished just like that." Baizhuan was stunned. He never thought that this would be the answer. He thought that she just wanted to buy a ring for him. He did not know how to describe that feeling. He had picked up a gun to protect others for too long. He had actually forgotten the feeling of being protected. His Ajou had never changed. Baizhuan chuckled and said, "I really don't want to get too close to them." "Yes, I can see that." Ajou's eyes were wide open. She looked dull, but she was actually very smart. Baizhuan rubbed her head and led her over. The corners of his mouth were all smiles. It seemed that Aju was more suitable to be his wife than he had imagined. His girl had grown up. In fact, Aju had always been very good at reading these things. When Baizhuan walked forward, she did not forget to lean over and whisper in her little brother's ear, "That President Song just now had a cunning face and cloudy eyes. He should be very fond of beautiful women. Lust is a knife above a knife. Sooner or later, something will happen to him. So little brother, you must not learn from these people, understand? I am enough for you." Baizhuan was very serious when he first listened. When he heard the last sentence, he could not help but turn around and laugh. "You are enough. Isn't it?" Aju was a little conflicted. She thought about her own advantages. "I know how to box, I can protect you, and I can also read people's faces. I am quite versatile." Baizhuan pulled her over and added for her with a smile, "Why don't you say that you are very good looking? You have to be humble." Aju had a pair of round tiger eyes. She was very serious. Baizhuan now wanted to have a sofa where he could carry her up and put her on his lap. Why was she so cute? "Little brother, don't smile all the time." Aju pursed her lips. Just as Baizhuan was about to speak, a reporter brought the microphone over. "Hello, sir. May I ask if you are boyfriend and girlfriend? We have some questions here about the degree of tacit understanding between couples. We want to ask you. A few couples have been interviewed just now. Are you willing to accept?" Baizhuan's eyes swept over. It was simple equipment, and there were a few passers-by around. It was indeed an ordinary investigation. He smiled and said, "Of course." "Wow. That's great. I was just thinking that sir and this lady are a good match. It would be great if I could interview you." The reporter was very good at talking, and she was also very pretty. She held a microphone in one hand and a piece of paper in the other. "Here's the problem. Please listen carefully. If you answered wrongly, you would be punished. Then, may I ask, when was the last time you kissed? Please answer at the same time." Aju paused, and her black gem eyes were stunned. Why did he ask such a question? Shouldn't she be asking him what his favorite food was? Ah! He had been tricked. Aju thought for a moment and tried to answer correctly. However, she didn't know why, but whenever she thought of the image of her little brother kissing her, her heart couldn't take it anymore. Even her face was a little hot. She couldn't think of anything no matter how hard she tried. The reporter was probably anxious from waiting. He asked, "Do you have an answer?" The couples who had just been interviewed also wanted to hear the answers of these two people. After all, they were too good-looking. Beautiful things always made people stop and admire them. Aju was obviously anxious, but the more anxious she was, the more confused her mind became. At this time, Baizhuan chuckled softly. He rubbed her head with his big palm and lowered his eyes to kiss her. Then, he pressed the stunned Aju into his arms and faced the camera. He only said 2 words, "Just now, I saw you." In an instant, Aju's face turned red. She leaned against Baizhuan's chest, revealing only her 2 erect strands of hair. The reporters on the street were stunned for a moment. When they reacted, their eyes were filled with envy. There were also the girls who were watching. They looked at Baizhuan and then at their boyfriends. They couldn't help but let out a long sigh. After all, no girl would not be willing to be treated like that by her boyfriend. Such an answer were really too sweet. The boys immediately understood what his girlfriend meant. They looked at Baizhuan with resentment in their eyes. "Bro, it was one thing for you to be handsome, but why were you so good at making your girlfriend happy? Can't you give the others a chance to live, huh?" Bai Juan, on the other hand, was very calm. Are there any other questions? No, no. The reporter shook her head and only then did she come back to her senses. She glanced at the script. She had already thought of which scene to use for today's publicity. This pair was not only pleasing to the eye, but also very topical. How could it be so sweet? Unfortunately, the reporter did not know that just as she was still imagining how to make the theme. Bai Juan raised his hand as he brushed past her, and the recorded scene was blurred. After all, he was a special forces soldier, so of course, he would often carry some high-end electronic equipment. He could not appear on TV, and he could not let any video fall outside. If he was alone, it would be fine. But once Aju was here, this scene could not exist. Sister Zhang, take a look. Why does this camera seem to have a problem? Ah. What's wrong? Can't we film it? No, it's just that there seems to be a video missing. The video that was missing was the video that the reporter wanted to use the most as a topic. How could this be? It was really like seeing a ghost. The reporter had been lowering her head and fiddling with the camera. When she raised her head and wanted to let the eye-catching couple record again, there was no one on the street. At this moment, Aju and Bai Juan were sitting in the Hummer. Bai Juan lifted her chin and continued the kiss just now. It was indeed sweet. On the tip of her tongue and lips, every part of her body was like eating a clear mint candy. When it bloomed in her mouth, her entire body was numb. Aju could clearly sense that this was the smell of her little brother for a long time. It smelled very good, so good that it could make people addicted. Especially when he bit her lower lip, Aju could not help but tremble. Even her eyes became wet. Bai Juan lowered his eyes to look at the person in his arms. He took a deep breath and tightened his grip on the steering wheel. But after that, he did not do anything. Instead, he hugged Aju and bit her little shoulder. We still have training in the afternoon. Let's go eat something first, and then we'll go back to school together. Okay. Aju immediately agreed. Her classmates were still waiting for her answer. Just now, her roommates had sent her WeChat messages. She really should go back and tell them. Chapter 1293. However, there was one more thing. Aju raised her head and said, "Little brother, I'm getting married just like that. Shouldn't you tell my parents?" However, the answer was somewhat unexpected. I talked to my mother-in-law on the phone last night. Bai Juan turned the steering wheel and turned his head to look at Aju. She has already agreed. Aju's round tiger eyes were stunned for a moment before she said, "Since she has agreed, then I won't make the call." Okay. Bai Juan stopped and rubbed her head. Aju realized that her little brother especially liked to touch her head, so she moved closer and let Bai Juan touch her head. Bai Juan really found it a little difficult to control himself. He always wanted to kiss her and hug her. He was clearly still driving. When did he become so unprincipled? However, he had never had any principles in front of her. Bai Juan was not lying. He had indeed spoken to Hellion Vivian on the phone last night. No matter how much he wanted to abduct his Aju, he had to go through the other party's parents. This was the least he could do. And it was because of this phone call. Hellion Vivian smiled. Have you ever thought about what if I don't agree? Yes, Bai Juan replied. But I have to make this call. Hellion Vivian raised her eyebrows, and the smile on the corner of her mouth became even wider. Bai Juan, I really didn't misjudge you. I'll leave Aju to you. But you know my two brats. If they find out that you abducted Aju, you'll suffer. Bai Juan naturally knew how difficult it was to deal with his two brothers-in-law. Including marrying Aju, he had to agree to Hellion Vivian's conditions. He did not tell Aju anything. Her girl only needed to be happy to be his bride. She did not need to worry about anything else. Baizhuan was also very clear that it was better to keep the matter of him marrying Aju a secret. But he was even more clear that his Aju wanted to share the joy with others. You can call Grandpa. Baizhuan handed the phone to her. Aju did not take it. Instead, she smiled and took out her phone. I have Grandpa Bai's phone number. Use mine to call him. Okay. When Aju was on the phone, the hair on her head was still standing up. No matter how she looked at it, she looked cute. Old Master Bai, who had just finished a meeting, was immediately amused when he saw the incoming call. Aju, why did you call grandfather? Aju laughed at first, and her voice was very bright and clear. Grandpa Bai, I'm married to little brother, and I even got a certificate. I'm a member of the Bai family from now on. What did you say? Elder Bai suspected that there was something wrong with his ears. Get married. Get a marriage license. No. When did his grandson come back? Why didn't he know? When Aju heard old Master Bai's roar, she was also stunned. Grandfather, are you not happy that I married little brother? How could this be? Old Master Bai immediately denied it and quickly organized his tone. Aju, Grandpa looks forward to the stars and the moon every day. I hope that the two of you can be together as soon as possible. Grandpa had long recognized you as his granddaughter-in-law. Grandpa didn't even let Baizhuan meet those people he had introduced to him. My grandson is Aju's, right? Aju was overjoyed when she heard that. It's also Grandpa's. Can you not sell me around like this? Baizhuan came over with a light smile and gave Aju a suggestion. Let him give you a gift. A granddaughter-in-law must have a gift. Old Master Bai had already heard his grandson's voice on the other end of the phone. Now that he was close, he could not help but ask, when did you come back? Is what Aju said true? Are you married? Have you registered your marriage? When he said the word registered, old Master Bai's voice trembled. When did this brat register their marriage? Aju was still young, right? Could she register it? But on second thought, his grandson must have used some kind of method again. Old Master Bai was a tough person and had been a good soldier all his life. But at this moment, he chose to turn a blind eye because he knew better than anyone how much his grandson had sacrificed in order to marry Aju. He had gone through a few cold bones and returned full of injuries. Even when he was taking out the bullets on the hospital bed, he was still chanting that person's name. It was time to give him some reward. This grandson of his had propped up the Bai family and protected the territory when other people should have been in love. Now, he would let him do whatever he wanted. Forget it, Grandpa won't ask you anymore. You brat, there's no truth in your mouth. As old Master Bai spoke, he added, Aju, when you have time, bring your little brother to visit Grandpa. Grandpa is in southern Tibet, and no one dares to play chess with Grandpa. When Aju heard this, she immediately nodded. October is almost here. When the school has a break, I will fly over. Then what about your wedding banquet? When do you plan to hold it? The more old Master Bai spoke, the happier he became. Why don't we hold it in these 2 days? If old Lizzie and the others know that my grandson has married a wife, they will definitely be envious. I will call them in a while. As for your Grandpa Xiao, I want them to know that my Aju is still the most promising. She brought him home so early. Okay. Aju nodded even more vigorously this time. Baizhuan held his forehead when he heard this. Chief Bai, it seems that I am your biological grandson, right? Speaking of bringing her home, it should be him bringing her home, right? Go. Don't disturb my conversation with Aju. When old Master Bai met Aju, he was like an old child who had returned to his childhood. Bai Juan could not do anything about them, but he still answered old Master Bai's question. Aju is still in school. It will not be good for her to hold a wedding like this. The army will not allow soldiers to fall in love with students. Although we are legal, the wedding will wait until Aju is an adult. Old Master Bai was so smart, how could he not understand what his grandson meant? These things were originally small matters. It was just that his grandson did not want Aju to suffer a little. After all, getting married while underage would always attract criticism. Aren't you afraid that Aju will meet a better man in university? Old Master Bai could not help but tease his grandson. University A is a place where talents gather. If I'm not wrong, you will only be back for a few days. You are about to return to the army, right? If you don't announce it, are you really not worried? How could he not be worried? The more he liked her, the more uneasy he would feel. These were the secrets hidden in the deepest part of Bai Juan's heart. Even if they got married, they would have to face how far they would go and what would happen in between. He could not predict it either. However, there was only one thing he was sure of. That was that he would never let go. Even if this certificate was obtained in a hurry, he still had to hold it firmly in his hand. Chapter 1294. But before he could say anything, Aju opened her mouth and said to the other side of the phone, "Grandpa, don't talk nonsense. What can little brother be worried about? I like little brother so much because I was afraid that he would run away, so I proposed to him." Old Master Bai was stunned when he heard this. Then, he laughed out loud. "Aju, be good. Your little brother won't be able to run away in this lifetime." "Yes, I know. Military marriages are protected by the law. You can't get a divorce casually." Aju held Bai Juan's hand and said very seriously, "From now on, little brother will be mine." Although listening to Aju's confession was a very beautiful thing, Bai Juan also knew that if he continued to talk, the old man would laugh endlessly. He decisively took the phone from Aju's hand and hung up the phone. Bai Juan knew very well what his grandfather was like. He reckoned that he had already started to call those grandpas in the courtyard to show off what happened today. "Really?" Bai Juan smiled and shook his head. Aju did not understand what he was laughing at. She only decided that her stomach was very empty. She reached out and touched it. She raised her head and said, "Little brother, I'm hungry." "I know. I'll take you to a place to eat now," Bai Juan said as he patted her head. Her breath was warm and her face was handsome. It could be said that when he treated Aju, Bai Juan had never been ungentle. The two of them went to a vegetarian restaurant. Usually, restaurants like this were not cheap in good places, and the environment was also elegant. And the restaurant in front of them was one of the most famous deep alleys in the entire capital. Because it was quiet and secretive, it was deeply liked by the upper-class people and celebrities. This restaurant had been open for 3 years. It was said that the real boss had never appeared. Everyone only knew that he was a high-ranking disciple who came from the military compound, but no one knew who he was. However, there was one thing. No one dared to cause trouble here, and no paparazzi followed them here. It was very simple. If anyone did anything here, they would pay the price the next day. Similarly, this restaurant was not like other vegetarian restaurants, which rejected ordinary people because of the good environment. The dishes in the restaurant were definitely worth the money. As long as you could find this restaurant, the chef would give you the best cooking skills. Even if you only ordered a bowl of Beijing zhajiang noodles, there was plenty of sauce. Fresh cucumber strips and shredded green onions were added into the noodles, and half a spoonful of oil was sprinkled on top. The piercing aroma of the noodles filled the air, and together with the shop's special grapefruit herbal tea, it was extremely delicious. Authentic taste, childhood memories, every bite made people want to give a thumbs up. According to their chef, the boss had instructed them to make the noodles well. Other than white rice, his girl's favorite food was fried sauce made with eggs, accompanied by a large bowl of noodles. When she was young, she could eat several large bowls at a time. Only then did people know that the owner of the restaurant opened the restaurant because of the girl he was talking about. There was only one word in the name of the restaurant, temple. Mahogany tiles were used as tiles. After Bai Juan brought a Ju in, a waiter in a cheongsam immediately came up to them with a smile. "Sir, how many people are there?" "The two of you." "Yes, sir, this way please." The waiter arranged for them to sit by the window. From where a Ju sat, she could see the flowers blooming outside and the green stone wall. The ancient charm was very pleasing. A Ju inexplicably felt that this restaurant was very comfortable. The waiter looked at her and smiled. "Miss, I don't know if you have a Ju in your name. If you do, tell me in advance. Our restaurant will provide a free order service." "Free?" A Ju's beautiful tiger eyes became round. "So good." The waiter introduced, "This is the rule since we opened the restaurant. It has never changed. Then I have a Ju in my name." A Ju's face was serious. "Bai Li Ju, but I eat a lot. Do you want it for free too? Will you lose money?" Originally, the waiter needed the customer to show their ID card for her to confirm their name. Now, the waiter did not even ask for the ID card. His thin lips curled up. "No, miss, you can eat without worry. Our restaurant likes girls who can eat." After a Ju heard this, she turned her head and said to Bai Juan, "Little brother, this restaurant is so cute. It likes girls who can eat, and it's free." Bai Juan did not look surprised. Instead, he pulled her hand over and let her look at the menu together. He asked in a low voice, "Do you want to eat noodles with soy sauce?" "Yes." A Ju was obedient. She liked to eat everything. Bai Juan rubbed her forehead and elegantly returned the menu to the waiter. "Please have 2 big bowls of noodles with soy sauce. One of the bowls has to have more sauce. The eggs have to be 90% cooked." This was the first time the waiter had encountered a request for the eggs and the noodles with soy sauce. He paused for a moment before saying with a smile, "Yes, sir." A Ju was still touching her stomach. She looked at the stir-fried dishes on the next table and then looked at the little brother who was very close to her. In the end, she still looked at Bai Juan's face. It seemed that the little brother looked more delicious. "A Ju." Bai Juan seemed to sigh and put down the teacup at his fingertips. Then, he turned around and held her chin. When no one was paying attention, he gently bit her lips. His voice was very low and a little hoarse. "How many times have I told you not to look at me like that when we are outside?" A Ju's face was also red from being bitten. Her eyes were quiet, but her hands were not idle. She took Bai Juan's hand and wrote the word "hungry" on his palm. She wrote it a total of 3 times. Bai Juan only felt something gently sweep across his heart. It was like a feather, unbelievably soft. Outside the window, there was a faint osmanthus fragrance. The early autumn wind was very comfortable. If only time could stop like this. That was the deepest thought in Bai Juan's heart at that moment. However, he knew better than anyone that it was not the time yet. In another 3 years, he would be discharged from the army. "Sir, miss, your noodles." The waiter smiled faintly and brought 2 large bowls up. The zhajiang noodles were arranged very nicely. Other than the sauce, there were also red and green side dishes. 2 large cups of herbal tea accompanied them. At the bottom of the bowl was a tiger-headed fish swimming. Beside it was a lotus root and lotus leaves. The shape of the lotus leaves was modified to make an umbrella for the herbal tea, so that it could retain the fragrance when it entered the mouth. Just such a beautiful plate presentation was enough to make one's appetite move. Baijuan took the wooden chopsticks and first put balsamic vinegar in the zhajiang noodles. Then, he scooped a spoonful of chili oil and poured it over. He mixed the noodles back and forth before handing it to Aju. Aju's face was small, and the bowl was especially big. When she buried her head in eating, her entire small face seemed to be buried in it. The 2 strands of hair on her head were still standing up. It was not like what Baijuan had said, that she was like a cat. The more Aju ate, the brighter her tiger eyes became. It was like the taste of the noodles made by the little brother when she was taking the exam in the past. Chapter 1295. Baijuan tilted his head and glanced at her. When he saw her white and tender teeth biting the noodles, he suddenly remembered that when Aju had just arrived at the Bai family, she was too young and still had a small head. When she ate a piece of vegetable, she had to bite it hard. She could always make the hearts of the group of people in the courtyard melt. Now, she was still like this. Baijuan laughed. He also picked up his wooden chopsticks and stuffed a big mouthful of noodles into his mouth. When he was with Aju, he would really eat more than usual. It was not a matter of a day or 2 for a child to eat. However, others did not think so. Especially the 2 women who had just been brought in by the waiter. They were wearing white coats outside and military uniforms inside. Captain Bai. The first woman to speak was very elegant. She seemed to have come out from a big family. Her skin was well maintained. When she looked at Baijuan, her eyes were filled with unconcealable joy. This woman was none other than the female military doctor who had confessed to Baijuan back then, He Chuqiao. She did not expect to see Baijuan here. Her face was slightly flushed. However, when her eyes swept over and landed on Aju, a trace of sadness quickly flashed across her eyes. Yi Xiaoxiao, who was following beside He Chuqiao, knew what her good friend was thinking. She nudged her with her arm and said in a low voice, "That girl is younger than Captain Bai. It's very likely that she's a friend's sister or something. What are you thinking about here? If we don't confirm our relationship, we still have a chance." When He Chuqiao heard her good friend's words, her face turned even redder. However, she really took a big step forward. "Captain Bai, what a coincidence. How's the injury on your back?" "Little brother, you have an injury on your back." Aju was still eating her noodles. When she heard this question, she immediately raised her face. That stunning face of hers was better than He Chuqiao and the others in minutes. Yi Xiaoxiao's heart also sank. Baijuan did not have any intention of paying attention to He Chuqiao. Instead, he used his fingertips to wipe the corner of Aju's lips. His smile was warm. "It was a long time ago. I want to have a checkup. I'll have a checkup when I get back." Aju was very serious in this aspect. However, Baijuan laughed. He had other business. "Okay, I'll let you check my whole body." Aju was such a cute child. No matter how smart she was only thinking about the injuries on Baijuan's body. How could she have thought that this sentence was a trap? She immediately nodded and agreed. However, it was this kind of interaction that made He Chuqiao's heart ache more and more. No one knew that when she was his attending physician and wanted to help him, he would not let her touch his hospital gown. On the contrary, the soldiers under his command were not rejected by him. But now, he actually treated a girl like this. There wasn't the slightest trace of coldness and unapproachable indifference from that time. Why did this happen? Anne. And he didn't seem to want to talk to her at all. Yi Chuqiao's face was about to bleed from embarrassment. Yi Xiaoxiao, who was following behind her, had never been treated like this either. Everyone in the restaurant was looking at them. She and Chu Qiao were the flowers of the army. Wherever they went, they were envied by others. This Captain Bai was a soldier after all. No matter how noble his appearance was, it could not hide the impolite ruffian aura on his body. Just by seeing that he only ordered 2 big bowls of zhajiang noodles here, it could be seen. She reached out and pulled He Chuqiao. She said with a fake smile, "Chuqiao, let's not disturb Captain Bai and his little girlfriend from eating zhajiang noodles. You, with such good conditions, what kind of man can't you find? The more polite you are to some people, the more excited they will be. I've heard before that some ordinary office workers who know about this place always come to take a look. Although the other dishes are not expensive, for outsiders like them, it's always painful to order them. Therefore, this zhajiang noodles have become their first choice. I didn't know before, but now that I've seen Captain Bai's girlfriend, I finally understand this principle. Zhajiang noodles can fill your stomach, don't you think so?" She didn't finish her sentence. There was a loud bang. The small bowl in Bai Juan's hand brushed past her ear and shattered heavily on the ground. Yi Xiaoxiao was so scared that her face turned pale at first, then she shouted, "Where do you think this is?" "The army." "Even in the army, when is it your turn to be arrogant as the captain? We gave you face before because He Chuqiao had a good impression of you. Now you're taking advantage of us, aren't you?" In fact, whether it was Yi Xiaoxiao or He Chuqiao, they had only seen the injured Bai Juan back then. As medical staff, they would bandage the injured soldiers' wounds every day. However, they did not know Bai Juan's name, nor did they know why he was injured and what his identity was. This was a secret even to their minister, let alone them. Back then, He Chuqiao had asked a question or two because she wanted to chase after Bai Juan. However, those soldiers all laughed and said, it was an accident during training. Therefore, Yi Xiaoxiao believed that Bai Juan had no background. After all, when he was injured, no one with a high military rank came over. How could Yi Xiaoxiao know that no one went because they had received Bai Juan's order? He did not want his grandfather to see him in such a sorry state. It was inevitable that the old man would be sad. He also did not want Zhu to know that his girl should not see this blood. At that time, he thought that he would come back to life. He had to come back to life. Otherwise, he would not be at ease no matter who he handed over to his Zhu. The news had been sealed at the highest level, so how could anyone go to check on the injury? However, Yi Xiaoxiao took it for granted that Bai Juan had no background, so she dared to challenge him like this. Soon, the noise here attracted a large number of waiters. Yi Xiaoxiao pointed at Bai Juan and said to the waiters, "This person is causing trouble in the restaurant." He was also the one who broke the bowl. He didn't even inquire about what kind of place the temple was before coming to show off. When the waiters heard this, they stretched out their hands and said, "Sir, please leave this restaurant immediately, or else." The chef, who had never come out before, actually hurriedly walked to Bai Juan's side and directly interrupted them, "All of you, shut up." The waiters paused. A smile appeared on the chef's face. "Young master, long time no see. When I heard the servant say that the eggs should be 90% cooked, I wondered if you were back." "As expected, it's really you. Young master." In an instant, not only did the smug expression on Yi Xiaoxiao's face freeze, but even the waiters beside her were extremely shocked. Chapter 1296. Bai Juan stood up with one hand in his pocket. He didn't even look at Yi Xiaoxiao and the others. He only said to the chef, "Old Chin, we haven't seen each other for more than 2 years, right? Ever since you handed this shop over to me, I've only seen you once in the year before last. After that, I've never seen you again. Old Chin treated Bai Juan very respectfully. Young master, don't worry. Everything in this shop is done according to your instructions. There are no changes at all. Old Chin still remembered that 3 years ago, a youth in a school uniform found him in the Bai family's logistics army and said that he was going to be a soldier. He asked if he was willing to make a bowl of zhaojiangmian with him. Unlike ordinary zhaojiangmian, the zhaojiangmian that the youth wanted to make was not made with meat. Instead, it was made with scrambled eggs and then boiled with sauce. Old Chen was an old chef. This was the first time he had seen someone make zhaojiangmian like this. He instinctively blocked his hand and said, "Young master, this zhaojiangmian is not made like this. This sauce must be made with meat to taste good." At that time, the youth only smiled and said to him, "My girl is a disciple who has returned to the secular world. She doesn't eat meat." Only then did Old Chin know that there were some people who were willing to wash away their lead and make a bowl of zhaojiangmian with eggs for the sake of the existence in their hearts. If it was a young master from another courtyard, Old Chin might not even care about him. However, because of this young master's sincere efforts, Old Chin also picked up the pot and studied with Bai Juan how to make an ordinary bowl of zhaojiangmian unexpected. Finally, they succeeded. Everyone who ate it was full of praise. At this time, the youth proposed to open a private restaurant, and he would be the owner and chef. Old Chen was a boorish person, so he didn't know these things. In addition, he was already old, so he didn't immediately nod. Bai Juan smiled and said, "Old Chen, don't worry. Someone will do the other things." Old Chen finally agreed, but he thought again. Isn't young master going to be a soldier? Why is he still opening a restaurant? Old Chen still remembered that the sky had just turned dark, and there was still a streak of red in the western sky. The young man stood there with his back straight and said in a low voice, "It's because I'm leaving that I don't want her to go hungry. With this restaurant here, if she doesn't have money one day, she won't have to eat pancakes on the street. She looks dull, but she has a big appetite. She gets hungry easily. If there's not enough food, it won't be enough for her. So much effort." He just didn't want to starve his girl. Elder Chen had lived for most of his life, but this was the first time he had seen someone like this. Feeling moved, he immediately got to work. This was also the reason why as long as a girl with a Hjo in her name entered the restaurant, everything would be free of charge. At this time, when Old Chen looked at the young man again, he couldn't help but feel that time was peaceful. The young master was no longer the young master of the past. From his movements, one could see the strength of someone who had been to the border. However, the look in his eyes did not change. It was deep and full of righteousness. "Chef Chen, who is this?" The waiter at the side asked carefully. After all, Chef Chen's identity was not ordinary. Someone who could make him call him young master. Old Chen glanced at him and said, "This is the real boss of our restaurant, Bai Juan, young master Bai." Bai Juan. As soon as these two words were said, someone in the private room stuck out his head and looked out. The mystery about this vegetarian restaurant was finally solved. It turned out that the boss behind it was none other than the well-known young master Bai. Everyone who came out of the courtyard admired and worshipped Bai Juan. Even those young masters who ate, drank, and played all day long had to bow down when they saw him. How could they not bow down? A person's credit was earned by themselves. They did not use the slightest bit of family connections. It was completely different from those who took the family's money and earned it. Is it really that young master Bai? It looks like it. I heard from my father that his military rank is already a major. My father talks about other people's children in front of me all day long. Thinking about it carefully, This Baijuan is even younger than me. Chief Xiao specifically named him as the successor. This is really incomparable. No wonder no one dares to cause trouble here. The main reason is that it's comfortable to stay here. Young Master Bai is not like us, who casually makes things difficult for anyone. You heard what that woman said just now. She was clearly making fun of the people that young Master Bai brought. This definitely can't be tolerated. She's not bad looking, but her words carry the smell of money. Pfft. This time, she was probably dumbfounded. Yi Xiaoxiao was not just dumbfounded. Her entire face was pale. Baijuan. Only then did she know what his real name was. Naturally, she also knew his family background. It was the young master that they did not even dare to compare to. At first, Yi Xiaoxiao thought that her status was higher than his, but now she realized what the gap was. Captain Bai, why didn't you say earlier that you were? Yi Xiaoxiao still wanted to say something. Baijuan glanced over from the corner of his eyes and interrupted her coldly. Old Qin, invite these two people out. In the future, our restaurant is forbidden from letting such people in. Yes. Old Qin gestured to the waiters at the side. Yi Xiaoxiao and the other two felt as if they had been slapped in the face. Of course, they could not stay in this place anymore, but they had lost all their face. In the future, they might be laughed at in the circle. Ajua rolled her round tiger eyes and looked at this scene. Suddenly, she said, "Little brother, are you also very popular in the army?" Baijuan smiled and said, "I'm not sure either." Liar. Aju's mouth twitched. Such a big peach blossom. Baijuan was still pretending. No. Why didn't I see it? Little brother, you have to be honest. Aju educated him seriously. Her big eyes turned around again and she said, "But you also saw that those women still like the Bai family more than you. I'm different. I like you as a person. Think about it carefully, am I still the best?" When Old Qin heard such a theory, he could not help but laugh out loud. So this young lady had been fooling around for a long time just to praise her family. Aju turned her head and saw that the chef was laughing. She immediately felt embarrassed and lowered her head to burrow into Baijuan's arms. Baijuan reached out and hugged her as if he was hugging his own child. Of course, my Aju is the best. It had always been. There was only this one person. That was why she did not care about his background. She was only good to him because he was him. Chapter 1297. Old Chen was stunned. He had never seen young master smile like this before. Whether it was the youth back then or after he became a man, his eyes had always been as calm as ink, as if he was a person in a painting. But now, seeing him coaxing the person in his arms, the corners of his mouth and the tips of his eyebrows were full of smiles. He was really happy. It was not like a few years ago when he was silent when he saw him. "Young master, I think this is your girl." Old Chen was smart and guessed right. Baijuan raised Aju's hand and kissed it before saying, "She's my wife now." Old Chen could not help but be shocked. His eyes shook a few times before he said, "Congratulations. Young master, I'll go to the kitchen to add some dishes." No. It's the two of you. Celebrate." He really did not think too much. Old Chen also did not ask about Aju's age. He always felt that it was not easy for the young master to be with the girl he loved. Although that girl did not seem to know anything. But this was really something to be happy about, wasn't it? Baijuan did not refuse. Instead, he smiled and said, "Go ahead. I guess she's not full yet." "Okay." Old Chen was full of energy. The people on the other side were still looking at Baijuan's table, but no one dared to come over. This was because Baijuan's entire aura seemed to be saying that he did not want to be disturbed. Aju sat beside him. She ate whatever Baijuan gave her. Old Chen thought that Aju did not know anything. In fact, when Old Chen said that Baijuan was the owner of this shop, Aju understood everything. Why would he give a girl with a 9 in her name for free? It was all because Baijuan had been thinking about her from the beginning to the end. Aju raised her eyes and buried her head in Baijuan's arms again. What's wrong? What a gentle voice. Why was there a person who was so gentle to her since she was young? That person was clearly not much older than her. But he had to be her father and mother. When she was young, she had chicken pox. He was not even afraid of infection and kept hugging her. Old Master Bai was not at home. Although no one in the military compound dared to provoke the Bai family. However, some distant relatives of the Bai family who were related to her by blood would often disturb her because of her appearance. They said that she was not a descendant of the Bai family and did not deserve to stay in the Bai family. Someone even told the little brother that when she grew up, she would definitely covet the Bai family's property and asked the little brother to quickly chase her away. There were also people who said that the little brother was not worthy of this family. He was young and did not think much. How could he just casually adopt a child? At the time, the little big brother was hugging her and sitting in the seat that Grandpa Bai often sat in. He looked down at the group of people even though there was no one behind him to support him. Even though he was still a child. However, like a king, he only said one sentence to those people, "All of you, get out of here. I am the head of the Bai family, not you." At that time, she knew that her little brother would protect her for the rest of her life. Aju reached out and grabbed the corner of Baijuan's clothes. Baijuan didn't ask her anything else. He rubbed her head and kissed the top of her head. Later, when Aju was happy, she ate another bowl of zhajiang noodles. However, after getting into the car, her stomach was a little bulging. She lowered her head and touched it with her hand. She said in a small voice, "I'm full." She didn't expect Baijuan to hear her. He didn't drive directly. Instead, he reached out his hand and began to gently rub her stomach. He smiled faintly. It was very pleasant to hear. Aju always felt that the way she got along with the little brother was very familiar. She tilted her head and thought for a moment before pulling up a video. It was a celebrity who took a picture of his little brother after eating. His little brother was very cute. His eyelashes were long as he patted his little stomach. The celebrity's voice was very gentle. "You're full. Come and see your brother." As expected, it was very similar. Aju poked her face. Baijuan didn't know what she was thinking. There was still training in the afternoon. The car stopped at the school. There was another round of military training. During the break, the people in the class hurriedly pulled Aju to the side. "Woolly Aju, why did you only come to school now? The sisters have been waiting for you anxiously." Aju touched her head. "I had something to do this morning." Oh, then did you ask the questions that the sisters asked you to ask?" Everyone's eyes were filled with anticipation. Aju smiled brightly. "Yes, I did." "Then what kind of person does Instructor Bai like?" Those people asked again. Aju pointed with her finger. "Me." As soon as these words were said, it immediately attracted a wave of boos. "Please, Woolly Aju, you already answered this answer last time." It seems that she didn't get the answer. Instructor Bai might not tell her. Poor child, I originally wanted to use her beauty to mislead Instructor Bai. Instructor Bai has known Aju for a longer time than we have. Perhaps he has long been immune to Aju's beauty. You're right. The group of people began to gather together and whisper. Only the few people in the dormitory pulled Aju over and brought her to the side. Did you really ask Instructor Bai yesterday? Aju nodded. Yes. What did Instructor Bai say? Aju replied, he said he likes me. What about you? What did he say? Aju tilted her head. I said I like little brother too. And then? This was the main point. According to Instructor Bai's personality, he would definitely pounce on her after confirming that the two of them had thought it through. They wanted to listen to the live broadcast. Verbal live broadcast. And then? Oh, Aju said, feeling that she understood. And then we were together. Now we are boyfriend and girlfriend. Her roommate bumped her shoulder and said very seriously, Student Aju, with our unwavering dormitory friendship, you should tell us the truth. Don't beat around the bush with your sisters. Be good and tell us the truth. Tell us what? Aju blinked. Could it be that they already knew about her marriage with little brother? Her roommate said again, of course, tell us how you spent last night. I heard that soldiers are especially good at that. Was it because you were too tired yesterday that you didn't come this morning? We all know. When Aju heard this, she realized what they were talking about. Her white jade-like face turned red for a moment before she said, we didn't. No. Her roommates were stunned. Didn't you say that you moved out to live with Instructor Bai? You didn't even live together. Aju nodded. Then, with a small face, she said very seriously, actually, I also feel that it's time for me to pounce on little brother. Let's do it tonight. It's the wedding night. Her roommates were speechless. Wait a minute, they had no intention of letting Aju send herself into the tiger's mouth. Chapter 1298. 2 p.m. in the afternoon. The 9th day of military training. The students were used to running and standing in a military posture. The more energy they expended, the more food they ate. Everyone had a big bowl of rice, eating with all their heart in the cafeteria. No one knew that at this time, in the Civil Affairs District, which was only a street away from a university, a limited edition sports car with smooth lines drove through the gate with a sharp sound. No one knew who was driving, it was completely blood red, carrying a thick arrogance and indescribable nobility. The strangest thing was that the car seemed to have disappeared and reappeared after being driven by him. Ordinary people would think that their eyes were playing tricks on them. If an exorcist were to come at this time, they would be able to sense that it was caused by the soaring demonic aura. With a swoosh, the sports car came to a stop downstairs. The person in the driver's seat was still lying lazily on the steering wheel, his long and narrow eyes seemed to emit light, extremely beautiful. He placed his finger on his chin, lifting his head to look at the rooftop, a sinister look on his face. This is the district where Director Huang lives. Seems like it. The person sitting beside him turned the notebook in his hand, smiling faintly. The information I hacked shows that the address is here. The person raised a brow. Then let's go down and ask him properly. Little sister is clearly underage, how did he handle the procedures for her? Okay. It was a light voice, but it couldn't hide the blackness in his voice. Two equally outstanding men stepped out of the sports car from the driver's seat. They were about the same height, almost the same. One of them was wearing an ivory handmade windbreaker, smiling like a spring breeze, holding a business notebook in his hand, making him look like a prince. The other one was wearing a pure black leather cap on his head, military boots, and leather pants on his lower body, and a jacket with tassels on his upper body. If someone else wore such an outfit, it would only make people feel that it was gaudy, but when he wore it, it only showed his charm and nobility. A big shot among big shots, a superstar among superstars. If a girl passed by now, she would definitely recognize the person tossing the car keys upwards. It was none other than the nation's big brother who had just filmed The Path of the Devil and became popular throughout Asia, Bailey Shangxie. Standing beside him was Enchanting. The two brothers walked into the elevator one after the other and pressed the button for the 16th floor. Director Huang should be the only one at home now. Enchanting closed the business notebook and smiled faintly. This is suitable for talking. He just ordered takeout. This is a good reason to open the door. Bailey Shangxie listened from the side with one hand in his pocket and the other hand reaching out to brush the bangs in front of his eyes. Brother. Enchanting was helpless. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm not a child anymore. You can leave this kind of thing to me. Bailey Shangxie's face was a little too handsome, but his voice was hard to resist. Stand still. Enchanting had no choice but to let him tidy her hair. She moved her eyes and asked, then who will play the role of the delivery man? Me. Bailey Shangxie held her hand and walked out of the elevator. They walked to room 1602 and knocked on the door. At this moment, Director Huang was hugging his beloved plush pillow and watching a military drama. His expression was extremely fascinated. That's right. In fact, Director Huang liked plush pillows very much. This was also the reason why Bai Juan gave him the nickname of Weasel. It had to be said that Director Huang was still very vigilant. After all, he had to maintain his strict and domineering image in front of his wife and children. At this moment, when he heard someone knocking on the door, he suddenly jumped up as if he had been cheated. He put away his things and asked in a low voice, "Who is it?" "Hello, sir. The takeout you ordered has arrived." Bailey Shangxie was indeed worthy of being the best actor. His voice had changed, so no one could hear any flaws. Director Huang had indeed ordered takeout. He did not dare to go to work in the bureau these 2 days. He had also instructed his subordinates that no matter who asked, they should tell them that he had gone out on a trip. Wasn't there a popular saying now? The world is so big. I want to see it. Director Huang thought that no matter how smart those two young masters were, they should not have thought that he did not go anywhere and was just hiding at home. After all, he had really bought a plane ticket, but he did not board the plane. Now, his car was still in the airport parking lot and had not been driven back. This was all to create an illusion. The more Director Huang thought about it, the more he felt that he was smart. It was just that sometimes, it was inconvenient to eat, and his wife had time outside. He did not know how to cook, and it was even more dangerous to go out, so he could only order takeout. Director Huang let out a long sigh and then opened the door with a serious expression. In fact, he was so hungry that his stomach was growling. He could not wait to get his things immediately. But the moment he opened the door, he was dumbfounded. Although it was only a crack, it was enough for Bailey Shangxie's long legs to stretch out and block his action of closing the door. Director Huang, what a coincidence. So you're at home. We thought you had gone to the grassland of Inner Mongolia. After all, the world is so big. We have to go out and take a look, don't you think so? As Bailey Shangxie's voice pressed in, the surrounding temperature became colder and colder. Director Huang's forehead was immediately covered in sweat. Enchanting smiled and said, "Brother, let's go in first before we talk." "Okay, come in." Bailey Shangxie pushed the door open. Director Huang was speechless. Whose house was this? Director Huang has become smarter. Enchanting sat down and praised him first. Director Huang stopped and said proudly, "You're flattering me." Who knew that Helianchinchin's next sentence was, "You even believe that the most dangerous place is the safest." Director Huang was speechless. Could she finish her sentence in one go? Did you give Bai Juan's marriage certificate? Compared to Helianchin, Bailey Shangxia was the most dangerous. There was never the word turn in his dictionary. His thin lips were cold. Director Huang wiped his sweat. I couldn't not give it to him. He had already written the application and it had been approved by the higher-ups. Moreover, when I clicked on confirmation, it was also approved. Only then would the certificate be formed. Wait a minute. Helianchin narrowed her eyes. You mean it was approved by the system? Director Huang nodded. Yes. Helianchin lowered her eyes and then met Bailey Shangxia's gaze. The two brothers thought of the same person at the same time. That was their mother. Their mother actually agreed. The two brothers looked at each other again. Then, Helianchin stood up and said to Director Huang with a faint smile, since Director Huang has applied for leave, then stay at home for 7 days. You have to maintain this appearance. After all, you're the one who let them register their marriage. Chapter 1299. Maintain this appearance and not change. Just let him not go out for 7 days. This was too unbearable. However, this was already much better than he had imagined. He had thought that these two young masters would cut him into pieces. After all, when they came, they did look like that. But he didn't know why, but the two of them left after this. After returning to the sports car, Helianchin said, since mother has agreed, let's not make a fuss. After all, my little sister also likes Bai Juan. Bailey Shangxia sneered. That kid obviously had a premeditated plan. In the future, don't be like your little sister, who can just come over and abduct him. Helianchin. Did anyone dare to abduct him? Speak. Bailey Shangxia lowered his voice again and said, all of you, why do you want to get married? Do all humans have to get married? Helianchin put away the business book. Brother, I don't have a girlfriend yet, so I won't be abducted by anyone. Bailey Shangxia glanced at him and the corners of his mouth curled up. He looked very happy as if something had happened. Let's go. Where to? Helianchin raised her eyebrows. Shouldn't you fly directly to Spain to film? Bailey Shangxia lazily knocked on the steering wheel. I'm not interested in going to Spain. The girls there are very tanned. I like to eat white. Helianchin face-bombed. The food that her brother spoke of was definitely different from what everyone thought of. To your school. Bailey Shangxia's voice fell. Helianchin paused. Why are you going to our school? It's the last year of your senior year. Your school leader called home and asked your parents to attend the school meeting, Bailey Shangxia said calmly. Helianchin asked, so why do you want to go? Bailey Shangxia pressed the tip of his tongue against his canine teeth and asked in return, am I not considered your parent? Helianchin. This answer. He actually had nothing to say. Bailey Shangxia's eyes darkened, and unbridled devil chi overflowed. Even if he did not obstruct, the brat surnamed Bai would not be able to stay here for long. Thinking of this, as a brother, Bailey Shangxia finally calmed down. With a wicked smile on his face, he drove into the bustling city center. The sky darkened bit by bit. Dusk. Night was about to fall. In the apartment closest to a university, the aroma had already spread from the kitchen to the living room. There were 4 dishes and a soup on the dining table. The red and green dishes were especially beautiful. Every dish was a Ju's favorite. When the rice was chewed in her mouth, her lips and teeth emitted a faint fragrance. Perhaps many people would think that it was not good for a man to be in the kitchen. But that was because many people had never seen Bai Juan and a certain highness cook. Aju watched these two people cook the most. Her father liked to fry steak the most. He would always pull her mother along and hold her hand from behind, asking her to put the steak in the frying pan. As for the rest, her father would not touch it. Her father was an extremely clean freak. Yes, very clean freak. Other than her mother, he would probably think that everyone in the world was dirty. Of course, she was still very likable by her father. After all, her father would not speak ill of her. He would even give her red wine to drink and take her to many mountains to play. It was not like how he treated her big brother. Her father always liked to let her big brother go to the demon world. Her big brother also always said that her father was very shameless. Perhaps there were some things in this world that countered each other, but they merged into a family. A real family. Aju knew that although she said so, she would not tolerate anyone in the family being hurt at all. No, I'm talking about cooking. Bai Juan looked very good when he was cooking. His side profile was very gentle, his movements were as smooth as flowing water, and his eyes were deep. There was no smell of oil on his body. Instead, it was full of the fragrance of food. This made Aju like to nest in his arms after dinner. In fact, it was not Aju who took the initiative to nest. Instead, every time it was this time, Bai Juan would hold her in his arms. The two of them would sit on the sofa together. Sometimes, they would watch TV. When watching TV, Bai Juan would always not forget to prepare some snacks for Aju. Aju loved to eat melon seeds. Bai Juan would peel them and feed them to her. Or, he would take a book similar to Time Like Water and read it with Aju. In short, this kind of interaction was sweet, but it was too normal. Especially today, when Aju decided to pounce on Bai Juan and consummate the wedding night. It was said that to pounce on someone, one had to drink some wine. Therefore, before Aju went upstairs, she had already bought a bottle and put it in her bag. Although monks were not allowed to drink wine, she was about to break her sexual abstinence. It should not be a problem to break her sexual abstinence tonight. Moreover, her brother and the others had also said that the immortals in heaven all drank wine. After Aju made up her mind, she silently chanted, "Woolly Buddha." Then, she raised her little face and looked at Bai Juan with her round tiger eyes. "Little brother, shall we drink some wine?" "Drink?" Bai Juan raised his eyebrows. "There's no wine at home." Aju pressed down on her a hoag and said angrily, "I bought it. Anyway, you like it. I also want to drink it today. It's red wine. My mother said that drinking red wine is quite beautiful and nourishing. No wonder little brother is so handsome. In the past, you always secretly drank it yourself." Bai Juan held back his laughter and curled her long hair with his fingers. "Red wine needs a bottle opener. Did you buy it?" "No." Aju was stunned. Bai Juan stood up and walked into the kitchen. When he came out again, he was already holding a bottle opener in his hand. "Where's the red wine?" "Here." Aju raised the wine bottle and handed it to Bai Juan. Her big eyes were very beautiful. She was still wearing the tiger pajamas that Bai Juan had just bought for her today. Her tail was wagging. However, at this time, she was no longer a child. Her body was clearly developed, and her fair collarbone was exposed. Looking at Bai Juan like that, it made Bai Juan have the urge to hug her. That kind of fierce and completely possessive hug. She dressed as a man, dominated the game, and her flirting skills were top-notch. When people found out that he was a girl, they were all excited. "Fujo, Almighty Chin, do you have a girlfriend? Chin Mo put down his business book. No. Fujio teased in a low voice, then from now on, you have one. It's me. The corners of Chin Mo's mouth curled up slightly, and he pulled open her school uniform. Fujio was stunned. Wait. What are you going to do? Chin Mo leaned over domineeringly. Exercising my right as a boyfriend to sleep with you. Chapter 1300. Bai Juan's gaze paused for a moment. He forced himself to suppress all his thoughts. Then, he took the red wine over, but he could not stop that thought. Aju was very excited. She was thinking about how to pounce on the little brother later so that it would seem natural. But before she could think of an answer, Bai Juan said, Aju, didn't you want to check the injuries on my body? Yes. Speaking of this serious matter, Aju immediately threw the thought of pouncing on him aside. She did not even drink the wine. With a fierce face, she said, I want to check. Bai Juan smiled. Okay. As he said that, he put down the red wine and lifted his shirt with his slender white fingers. The man's honey-colored and strong abs were displayed in front of Aju just like that. Every inch of his body was beautiful and sexy. That kind of Shurgingdu only wanted people to be hugged in his arms and love him fiercely. Aju did not know why, but when she saw such a little brother, her face actually felt a little hot, and her heartbeat also became irregular. However, Bai Juan pulled her hand over and let her palm press against his abdominal muscles. When he turned to the side, his breath hit behind her ear. Check carefully and see where are my injuries? Bai Juan asked. When her fingertips touched the burning skin, Aju's body unconsciously trembled. Her body was getting hotter and hotter, and her tailbone had an indescribable numbness. Even her breathing seemed to have become out of her control. Little brother, just as she opened her mouth, he lowered his head and kissed her deeply, blocking all the words she wanted to say. The tip of her tongue emitted a familiar mint fragrance. It was clean, charming, and impossible to escape. Aju felt as if her brain had been sucked out, and she was limp from head to toe. Her hands were still buried in the little brother's clothes, and the temperature of her fingertips could not dissipate no matter how hard she tried. Bai Juan leaned over and pressed her entire body into the sofa. His thin lips kissed the back of her ear again and again, and his fingertips pushed away her tiger pajamas. Aju grabbed onto the only trace of thought. She was clearly the one who wanted to pounce on the little brother, so how did it become the little brother pouncing on her? So this is the reason why you want to drink. Bai Juan laughed and said in a low and deep voice, Aju, you're not obedient. Aju's tiger eyes shook. Only then did she realize that she had said everything that she wanted to say. But so what? It was the same whether she pounced on the little brother or the little brother pounced on her. Today was their wedding night. She was going to break her sexual abstinence. However, the man in front of her paused and looked at the phone on the coffee table. A thin layer of sweat appeared on his forehead as he gently placed a kiss on her forehead. Good girl, I still have things to do. You go to sleep first. Aju paused when she heard this. But, this kind of thing had to be done with mutual affection. Moreover, the call came at a bad time. In fact, Aju also knew that the little brother did not want her. Because that phone call was not an important one. Aju entered the room first. She lay on the bed and waited until she was about to fall asleep. Only then did he realize that someone had entered. It seemed that the person had just taken a bath, and his entire body was emitting a faint bath fragrance. Aju naturally reached out her hand and hugged Bai Juan's waist. Her small face rubbed against him. Bai Juan lowered his eyes to look at the person in his arms. His deep eyes darkened. The next day. The roommates called Aju to the side on time. How is it? Is it because after drinking, you are so affectionate and hot-blooded? Go. Don't ask this first. Ask Instructor Bai if his figure is good. Aju thought for a moment and nodded. Very good. She even touched it before. It was indeed very good. She did not know why, but it seemed that even now, the warmth still remained in her palm. Her body had become so strange. When the roommates heard Aju's words, their eyes lit up. What about endurance? Is it also very good? No. Aju pursed her lips and gave them 2 words listlessly. When the roommates heard this, their expressions changed. Their lips trembled slightly. You mean, Instructor Bai, he can't do that. What can't he do? Aju held her small face with both hands. No, it's the 2 of us who didn't sleep. The roommates exclaimed and patted their chests as if they were relieved. That's fine. You scared me to death. I thought the Prince Charming in my heart was a fake. But it's very strange. Aren't you married? You didn't even use wine. The roommates looked at each other and frowned fiercely. Instructor Bai was not moved by a beauty like Aju. It didn't look like it. Aju waved her hand as if she didn't care about the failure. It doesn't matter. I can try again today. The method is right. The roommates were very supportive of Aju. It's just that you have to hurry up. The military training officially ends in 3 days. At that time, Instructor Bai will return to the army, right? When they said this, they were also stunned. In other words, Aju, you will be in a long-distance relationship with Instructor Bai in the future. We are not in a relationship. We are married. Aju still valued her status very much. I even bought a ring for little brother. The roommates looked at her with a rather heroic expression. No matter what, Aju, you really should take advantage of Instructor Bai before he returns to the army. Otherwise, it will be dangerous in the future. Dangerous? A trace of doubt flashed across Aju's round tiger eyes. The roommates actually did not want to teach her bad things, but Aju was younger than them. They just wanted to remind her of some principles. In the past, there were also university students who fell in love with instructors. They were all sweet when they were in school. After they separated, their feelings faded. This is also the reason why the school does not allow students to fall in love with instructors. The army also does not allow instructors to fall in love with students. Aju said seriously, that's why little brother brought me to get the marriage certificate. He is responsible for his identity and me. Bai Juan had just walked here when he heard this sentence. His girl was defending him. Before the smile on his face could be raised, the phone in the pocket of his military uniform rang. The ringtone was different from the usual ringtone. It was the ringtone that would only ring every time they were about to carry out a special mission. Bai Juan's footsteps that were about to take a step forward suddenly stopped. He instinctively turned his head and looked behind him. Not only him, but the entire problem army's cell phones also rang. At this time, everyone stopped what they were doing. The playful sound of you pushing me around no longer existed. His usual carefree attitude was no longer present. Even if they did not pick up the phone, they knew very well in their hearts. They were going to leave. They were going to leave this university campus that was full of warmth and sweetness. Hello. Bai Juan still did not hesitate to answer the call. Our current location is the southeast corner of University A. Chapter 1301. Okay. A voice came from the other end of the phone. Captain, we will arrive at the capital airport in half an hour. The police will cooperate with you to clear the direct route from the school to the airport. The east-west traffic lights will be suspended. Now, all the mechanisms have entered a state. Captain, there is a road on your left that can lead to the main road. There is a military vehicle parked there. When Baizhuan was on the phone, his eyes were always on the adorable child who was walking towards him not far away. He thought that he had to firmly remember her current appearance in such a small amount of time. His girl had already become his little wife. His wife, as long as he thought of these 4 words, Baizhuan's heart would soften. Then, it was because of this gentleness that he became unyielding in battle. He remembered it all the time. What he wanted to protect. Captain. The person on the other side was wearing headphones. He turned his head and thought that the signal was not good. Their captain did not receive the message. Baizhuan retracted his gaze. His deep and dark eyes suddenly became as reserved as ink. Got it. I'll go over right away. His entire body seemed to have melted into the wind. Just like how he had done countless missions in the past, there was a seemingly harmless poisonous snake hidden in the sand, but in fact, it would bite people to death once it was out. Even if it was saving people, they had to wear a black mask. This was how they were. They would never be remembered by others. But from the beginning to the end, they were willing. Ajou wanted to go over, but she saw Baizhuan open his mouth. Although she could not hear any sound. But Ajou also knew what he was saying. He said, "Wait for me to come back." At that moment, she seemed to have sensed something and stood there in a daze. Her roommates walked over and asked her, "What's wrong?" "Little brother is leaving." Ajou lowered her head and said in a low voice. Her roommates were still laughing. How can it be so fast? There are still 3 days of military training. The instructors won't just. Before they could finish their words, they saw a few instructors take off their camouflage jackets and head towards a certain place at the same time. At this time, the school leader also came over and stopped the students. "Students, listen to me. The new instructor has arrived at the front door of the school." The students were puzzled. Why do we need a new instructor? Where are Instructor Bai and the others? Instructor Bai and the others have something to do in the army. Alright, let's gather now. In fact, the school leaders didn't know what was going on. They just wanted to cooperate with the higher-ups. A large number of new instructors had arrived, and they wanted to do just that. Of course, no one would dare to step forward now that the school leaders were there. Moreover, the instructor and the others seemed to be walking very quickly. In the blink of an eye, they were already out of sight. Her roommates did not expect that things would develop to this point. They turned to look at the smallest one in their dormitory and did not know how to comfort her. It was all their fault for being such a jinx. Ajou. The boss pulled her over and was about to say something. Ajou said, "When I see Grandpa Bai on the 1st of October, I'll ask which army little brother is in. When the time comes, I'll go look for him." It was now the 1st of October, which was only slightly more than half a month. That's fine. His roommates breathed a sigh of relief. But he still found it strange. Under normal circumstances, the instructor would not leave until he had finished teaching the students. This time it was too strange. Not only did Instructor Bai leave, but even his subordinates also left with him. Just as everyone was feeling puzzled. Baizhuan and the others had already gotten into the car. As soon as they got into the car, they began to change their equipment. Their speed was so fast that it made people click their tongues. "Tell me the mission objective again." Baizhuan's voice was very calm. He gave the order and looked sideways, checking his gun. The driver said as he drove, "Someone entered our camp when our army was practicing, right at the border of our army." The people from the West used to be international special forces and were hired by a drug lord. Now, they are working as gangsters and want to transport powder through the border. They have few people, are good at hiding, and know very well how to fight in the jungle, especially in the tropical rainforest. We only managed to pry open this line because we caught a person. However, the other party is too cunning and deliberately chose a minefield. If we go further, there will be residents, so we can't send a large force, and we can't deal with them with our small force. These people have smart minds and international military training experience. They are very clear about our routine. It can be said that the combat mode we use here may be outdated in their eyes, so they want to invite the sharp blades to take action. As he spoke, the driver swung the tail of the car and drove into the main road. On this day, many people who took the airport route encountered a red light and waited for instructions. It was as if they were deliberately passing for someone. This was not uncommon in the imperial capital. But that would happen on Chang'an Street. And the strange thing was that this time, it was not a few cars that passed by. Instead, there was only a black military Hummer. They could not see what was going on inside. The car did not have a license plate, so it was very mysterious. But even so, it was still allowed to pass through and even drive into the airport. They did not pass the security check. These people all walked through special passages and were personally led by the higher-ups. A military plane was still hovering in the sky, stirring up a gust of wind. Then, a rope was thrown down. "Captain!" Someone stood at the entrance of the cabin and shouted down. Bai Juan gestured, and the problem soldiers immediately grabbed the rope and climbed up one by one. Each of them was very fast and very professional. They did not look like the lazy and arrogant people they were in school at all. Bai Juan was the last to go up. The plane did not even land before it flew away. The team of about 10 people began to increase their equipment for the second time on the plane. Bai Juan turned around and pointed at a small notebook. "This is the target we are going to deal with today. Remember their appearance and characteristics, as well as their gun techniques." "Yes." After the research, there was still half an hour of rest. Everyone sat in the cabin in silence. Li Hailu looked at Bai Juan's side profile and lowered his voice. "Did you say goodbye to Aju properly?" No, Bai Juan did not want to say these two words. He paused for a moment. "I asked her to wait for me to go back. It's not easy to be a military wife." Li Hailu nudged him with his shoulder. "Fortunately, you met Aju. She was like this when you were young. If you asked her to wait, she would wait. She trusted you more than anyone else." "Yes." Bai Juan lowered his eyes and smiled. So, how lucky was it to have such a wife? Chapter 1302. There are still 20 minutes to reach our goal. The pilot adjusted the sound wave. "Captain, I can't fly the plane over. I'll be discovered." Bai Juan restrained his gentleness. His handsome side profile flickered under the light. "Let's jump down." "Okay." The pilot flew sideways. All the soldiers were carrying parachute bags and guns. Military green equipment would be more convenient for hiding. "Are you ready?" Bai Juan stood at the hatch and looked back. His black hair was messy, his eyes were deep, and his voice was buzzing in the wind. "I'm ready." The answer was very loud. Bai Juan put on his mask, and his eyes were as cold as a wolf's. "Those who offend China, even if they are far away, they will be killed." The last sentence was said in a very deep voice. That voice seemed to come from their chests. It was like the scorching sun in the desert. In their eyes, there seemed to be something that would never be extinguished. Even if they were fully armed and only revealed a pair of eyes, people could not help but feel that it was starlight that filled the sky. At the same time, it was in an apartment outside the school. Aju pushed open the door. On this day, there was no smell of food in the kitchen, and the bedroom was also cold. She was stunned at first, then she raised her head and looked at Alaska in the room. The big dog was also a little listless. It lay there and did not even raise its paws. Aju immediately ran over and gave it dog food. Her eyes were very beautiful. Little brother left too suddenly, right? Woof! Alaska barked at her as if it had remembered something. It bit the hem of her pants and told her to go to the bedroom. Aju's round tiger eyes turned. What's there? Woof! Alaska ran over by itself and touched the box beside the bed with its big head. Aju was happy. Did little brother leave it for me? Woof! As a military dog, it was making a mountain out of a molehill for it to do this kind of thing. However, since it was its master's order, of course, it had to do its best. Thinking of this, Alaska raised its dog head. The way it raised its head and puffed out its chest made Aju want to rub it. Alaska was so scared that it shrank back and barked again, woof, woof, woof. You want me to watch it quickly? Aju raised her eyebrows. I'm talking about how strong you are. Alaska proudly walked around in a circle. Aju decided to play with little Ala later. She lowered her head and opened the box. There was a black card, a real estate book, and a piece of paper lying quietly inside. There was a line of words written on the paper in beautiful handwriting. If I had known that I had you for the rest of my life, I would have wanted to start the rest of my life earlier. My Aju, are you happy to marry me? Aju looked at the piece of paper with bright eyes. She turned around and hugged the dog's head. With a delicate little face, she said seriously, what should we do? I really miss it now. I miss her so much. I miss her so much. I'll pounce on you. Alaska, the way you express your gratitude is really unusual. Pounce. Shouldn't girls be crying at this time? Sure enough, he shouldn't have thought of her in a normal way. This Hercules. Aju looked at the piece of paper again and suddenly raised her head. I've decided. I'll join the army too. The expression on Alaska's face changed. Wait a minute, don't mess around. When Master finds out, he will think that I didn't look after you well. Why do you think Master left me behind? It's decided then. Aju reached out and patted Alaska's head. The Alaska, dazed by her strength, began to turn in circles. Aju did not hesitate at all. She felt that she could not tell her father about joining the army. Because every time her father saw humans, it was as if he was looking at ants. Probably all the demon kings were like this. At least it was much better than her big brother who wanted to eat humans whenever he saw them. Moreover, her father seemed to have brought her mother to the demon world. In her father's words, it was best not to disturb him and her mother if there was nothing. Aju poked her face. Then she would just tell her brother and the others directly. Second brother definitely had a way. Aju took out her phone and called Enchanting. The call was quickly picked up. Her second brother's smile was as pleasant as ever. Little sister, what's wrong? Her big brother seemed to be there as well. He said coldly and evilly, were you bullied by Baijuan? Just divorce him. No. Aju shook her head. It wasn't easy for me to tie little brother down. I don't want a divorce. Moreover, little brother didn't bully me. He has always been very good to me. Enchanting let out a long sigh. Don't listen to big brother. He's jealous. I know. Aju said in a tiger voice, I will always love Big Brother. Even if I get married, I will still love Big Brother more than Buddha. Bailey Shangxia smiled. Yes, very good. Then Big Brother, can you do me a favor? Aju continued, I want to join the army. Don't you know people in the army? I saw someone go to the villa to look for you last time. Bailey Shangxia frowned. Join the army? No, why not? Aju's tiger eyes widened. I'm very good at fighting. Bailey Shangxia lazily leaned back. Your purpose for joining the army is not good. It must be for that guy Baijuan. Yes, but not entirely. Aju's eyes darkened. I know divination. When I reach the border, I will definitely be able to save more people. I originally wanted to open a temple, but after thinking about it, I am already married to little brother. In the future, I will break the precept of lust, but I can't let Buddha down. Buddha said that true kindness is not to not see blood, but to be able to raise a knife and protect the important people. Even if your hands are covered in blood, you have to do it without hesitation. Little brother joined the army for me. I also want to join the army to protect our family. Bailey Shangxia listened to the words on the other side, and his fingers slowly stopped. Then, he turned around and met Helian Qingqin's gaze. Helian Qingqin reached out and took the phone out of his palm. She smiled faintly. Okay, Big Brother and I will help you arrange it. Thank you, Big Brother, second brother. Aju's tiger eyes burned. After hanging up the phone, Bailey Shangxia stood up. Are you really going to let little sister join the army? Big Brother. Helian Qingqin sat there and poured a cup of tea. It was like a clear painting that slowly unfolded. The Buddhist scriptures said that back then, the phoenix egg landed on Mount Buzhou. Sakya attracted the Buddhist light and waited for her to be born. Phoenix walked out of the blazing flames, so she must be different from the other Buddhas. Mother once held the phoenix bone knife in her hand and stepped on white bones and blood. She made a great vow that she would not become a Buddha until the sea of blood was empty. Little sister has the Buddhist fate of mother. She is different from us. Since she is the descendant of Phoenix, she naturally has the same comprehension. This is our little sister, isn't it? Chapter 1303. Hearing this, Bailey Shangxia pursed his lips. But from the looks of it, he seemed to have been convinced. He retracted his demonic aura and lay back on the sofa, like a lion that had retracted its claws. Helian Qingqin's lips curled up. And little sister still has us, she will be fine. I'll go catch a few ghosts and follow her. Bailey Shangxia moved immediately. Helian Qingqin thought for a moment and said, that's fine too. Then go to the underworld. When Bailey Shangxia mentioned the underworld, layers of evil aura appeared in his long and narrow eyes. At this time, the judge was the only one working overtime in the King of Hell's palace. He felt very sad. When Bailey Shangxia and Helian Qingqin appeared, he was so scared that he trembled. Why are the two young masters here? We're here to see you, Judge. Bailey Shangxia put his arm on the judge's shoulder. At this time, he didn't look like he was in the human world at all. Instead, he had turned into a demon with black hair that reached the ground. Even his eyes had turned into an evil red. That kind of pressure was really not something that anyone could bear. Especially the judge who had been troubled by their family. Young Master Shangxia, don't joke around. You're here to see Our Highness, right? He's not here and has gone to the human world. You know that he's grown up now. The King of Hell can't control him anymore. He's running between the two worlds. I know about this. He even got 2 ox head and horse face for the person he likes. Bailey Shangxie flipped through the Book of Life and Death on the table. The judge wanted to stop him, but he didn't dare to make a sound. He could only bow his head silently. However, was the news of their family's prince's disgraceful actions so widespread? Even the people in the demon world knew about it. It's not just the demon world. He seemed to have seen through the judge's thoughts. Last time, a few demons were discussing in the city center. I heard them. Those demons were courting death. Of all the people they could target, they actually targeted the person he was interested in. The judge paused for a moment. After thinking for a while, he decided to ask, "Young Master Shangxie, don't you think that it's strange for my highness to give someone ox head and horse face? Those are all ghost messengers. What's so strange about that?" Bailey Shangxie retorted, "What else is the underworld specialty other than the emissaries of hell?" The judge. He actually had nothing to say to that. But was it really a good idea to give it to a ghost servant that he loved? The most important thing was that the other party was a human. When these young masters gave gifts, did they ever consider the feelings of other people as humans? Helian Qingchen kept laughing at the side. He didn't want to tell the judge that other than looking for the Book of Life and Death, his big brother was also here to catch a few ghosts to play with his little sister. Otherwise, the infernal judge would definitely go crazy. Why aren't there any people with the surname by here? Bailey Shangxie flipped through a few pages and casually threw the Book of Life and Death to the side. The judge quickly caught it. Young Master Shangxie is talking about the Tang family. Your Highness calls him Uncle Tang. Bailey Shangxie was very absent-minded. The judge was shocked when he heard that. Then, he slowly said, "I don't know if young Master Shangxie has heard of such a saying. If a person is alive, he is not afraid of gods or demons. He has a clear conscience and his faith is as strong as a rock. He will not be affected by the Book of Life and Death." Bailey Shangxie listened quietly. A light flashed in his eyes. The person from the Tang family who dared to shoot at ghosts is one of the exceptions. After the judge finished speaking, he continued, "The young master of the Bai family is also full of righteousness. Not to mention ghosts, even Oxhead and Horseface don't dare to approach him." Hearing this, Helian Qingchen raised her eyebrows. In fact, they came down this time to increase Bai Zhuan's lifespan. They didn't expect his life to be so tough. People who were not in the Book of Life and Death were variables other than gods and demons. In fact, Helian Qingchen herself was also a variable. After all, he was not like Bailey Shangxie, nor was he like a Jew. In his body, there was both Helian Vivian's Buddhist aura and Beligaju's demonic vein and immortal root. Originally, he should not have existed in the world, but after reversing the reincarnation time and space, he was born. Since that's the case, then it doesn't matter if a Jew joins the army. With Bai Zhuan's righteousness, the cultivation of Buddha's fate depends on righteousness in the end. Helian Qingchen raised her eyes and smiled at Bailey Shangxie. Bailey Shangxie raised his eyebrows. "Then we'll just catch a ghost." "Ghost?" The judge's expression changed drastically. "You can't do that. Young masters, the underworld is different from the ancient times. We also have to clock into work and take inventory of the warehouse. If there are fewer ghosts, how am I going to explain it to His Highness?" Bailey Shangxie slowly curled his lips. "That's your business. Be good and work hard. We'll be leaving first." "Wait a minute. You little bastards. Come back." A Jew did not know that her 2 brothers had caught a few ghosts for her in the underworld. The next day, she finished writing the application for a leave of absence. Wearing the military uniform of a recruit, she held the Alaskan in her hand and embarked on her military journey. Every year, the recruits would receive a demonic training on the first day. It was fine to be a female soldier, but a Jew did not apply for an art soldier or a military doctor. Instead, she wanted to be a special forces soldier with all aspects. Do you know how to shoot? The person who asked her was a female soldier in her 30s. She had neat short black hair, a military cap on her head, and straight military boots. There was even a kind of fierce beauty. Although her voice was very faint, there was no trace of contempt in her eyes. Instead, it was an ordinary inquiry. A Jew nodded heavily. I know how to shoot. When the captain heard this, he casually threw her a gun. Try shooting twice. A Jew took it and aimed her round tiger eyes at the muzzle of the gun. Bang! 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 3 shots were fired in succession. Every shot hit the bullseye. The surrounding recruits all had their mouths wide open. Was she really like them, reporting to the army on her first day? The female soldier looked at a Jew and smiled. She ordered the people behind her, tell them that there's no need to choose from the veterans for me. I already have a candidate. As she spoke, she raised her hand and pointed at a Jew. I want to take this little girl away. Chapter 1304. The minister's face was full of black lines as he watched from behind. He had heard before that the Tang sect never played by the rules when choosing people. As expected, the recruits were all taken away by them. This child was still underage, right? She would definitely regret choosing to go to the Tang sect in the future. After all, that place was not a place for girls to stay. Those who could go all had a man in their hearts. Moreover, all of them were not afraid of death. However, he did not understand. The current Jew was very excited. Her round tiger eyes lit up. She put her hand between her lips and whistled loudly. A majestic Alaskan ran over from the other side and squatted beside her. Unlike the wild snow of the Alaskan, the white cat's steps were very cold. First, it jumped on the back of the Alaskan. Then, with a kick, it jumped on a Jew's head. Its tail was wagging there. This beautiful big sister, can I bring Xiao Bai Nala with me? The head of the army was stunned. When did these cats and dogs come in? Why didn't he know at all? Sure. The female soldier smiled confidently. In the future, these would be the cute pets of the Tang sect. A Jew smiled again. She thought to herself that if she had brought little Allah with her on the day they met, her little brother would definitely be happy to see her. The female soldier drove a desert military vehicle. The military vehicle had obviously been modified. The wheels were very thick, and when it rolled over the ground, it had a different vibration. Now that she had finished choosing people, she supported herself with one hand and jumped in. She did not sit in the driver's seat, but in the passenger's seat. She casually threw the keys to a Jew. A Jew immediately understood and jumped in with her arms propped up. She held the steering wheel with a very serious expression. The Alaskan and the white cat sat in the back. The scene was very cool. The military woman seemed to be very satisfied with the bunch of cute pets she brought. She put on her sunglasses and ordered, "Let's go." At the beginning, it was indeed very cool. But when a Jew started the car, the military woman tilted her head and almost tripped. Damn! Don't drive like that. Throttle. Slow down. Turn left. Child, that's not the left. Thus, a new journey began with a bang. 3 months later. At the southern border of Tibet, in the deepest part of the dense forest. It was said that it was the line of defense that terrified the enemy the most. Over there was a group of soldiers who were different from ordinary people. They belonged to the external force of the army and were the most special unit. They were not arranged according to their serial numbers, nor did they belong to any branch of the armed forces. The criminals overseas called them the Tang sect. The Huaxia people were most famous for Chinatown in various countries. This was the source of the Tang sect's meaning. In other words, this was the door to Huaxia, and they were the most trustworthy gatekeepers. This was because a belief was deeply implanted in their bones. If one day I have someone I love, I'll tell her, "Sorry, I can only protect you with my left hand. Because my right hand will be free, ready to go into battle at any time." This was the Tang sect. A unique existence. In the lush forest, a pair of military shoes stepped on the fallen leaves. Looking at the young girl who was playing with the wild wolf's tail, he could not help but raise his hand and rub his forehead. "Aju, come here quickly. There's a mission." When Aju heard this, she raised her eyes. Her tiger eyes were very beautiful. "Another mission?" "Yes, so let those wolves go." The soldier woman walked over. "This time, it's a mission outside." Aju let go of her hand and stood up. She seemed to have grown a little taller. Her bright eyes and white teeth were clear. "This is my first time going out. A special forces team will complete the mission with you." The female soldier patted her head. "Pack up and go out." Aju nodded and asked, "How do I get there?" "By car." The female soldier was speechless. "No." The female soldier decisively denied. "Someone will send you there. When they were carrying out the mission, they encountered something strange and need you to calculate." When Aju heard this, she felt a little regretful. "Actually, other than divination, I'm also very good at fighting. You don't need to do this kind of thing." The female soldier smiled. "They're also very strong." Aju withered for a moment and made another request. "Then I want to bring 10 buns to eat on the road." The female soldier was speechless. Could this request be higher? However, she would still try her best to satisfy the request of the cute pet of the Tang sect. Aju wanted 10 buns, and the shadows gave her 20. There were also people who told her how to carry out the mission. Don't talk to people. Be cold and aloof. This is the style of our Tang sect. Don't dance with people either. Put on sunglasses. If anyone dares to take advantage of you, just cut their throat. Last time, I pretended to be a dancer. Don't mention the feeling. Damn it, being touched on the waist almost made me curse in public. Hearing this last sentence, Aju raised her head. But senior brother, you're a man. Why did you pretend to be a dancer? That person froze and his face quickly turned red. It's necessary for the mission. No, this is definitely his hobby. Another beautiful sister walked over. Moreover, Aju, don't you think that his face is most suitable to be a dancer? Aju looked at her senior brother's face and nodded seriously. Indeed. You guys. That person gritted his teeth. Don't teach Aju bad things. Aju blinked and saw that everyone had stuffed a lot of things into her backpack. Basically, they were all food. When you're out on missions, you often don't have anything to eat. Wear them. I also have a small smoke bomb here. Aju, I've seen the place you're going in advance. You still need to go around a forest to reach your destination. There are many snakes in the forest. Be careful. Aju nodded as she listened. She looked very obedient. At this time, someone paused. Animals and whatnot, it should be fine, right? That's true. The others nodded. They firmly believed that Aju was the king of the beasts. Aju carried her heavy backpack and said very neatly, "Then I'll be leaving. I'll bring you instant noodles when I come back. I want the braised ones. Spicy ones. Seafood ones. Look at how useless you are. I want everything. Didn't you come out with a kimchi flavor recently? Give me a box too." Aju nodded and turned around. A large military bag was carried on her back. It did not look like something that could be carried by someone of her physique at all. She was followed by an Alaskan dog. Just like that, they entered the endless forest bit by bit. At that time, she did not know that the person waiting at the other end of the mission was someone who made her happy. Chapter 1305. To enter the mission area, one had to pass through a wild jungle. In China, there were many undeveloped tropical jungles. These jungles were basically at the border. But even in such a place, there would be troops stationed. Because here, there would always be some enemies eyeing them covetously. When China was first established, weapons were backward. There were many things that could not be extended, and they could not use force. Because it would violate the peace treaty at that time. There was clearly an enemy invading, but after the alarm sounded, the enemy plane still wandered around China without fear. It was because of this treaty that the other party was like this. They clung to China and did not dare to shoot. At that time, in order to repel the exploration plane sent by the enemy and protect national secrets, an officer flew a plane and crashed into it. Not shooting was not a violation of the treaty. But this officer was only 26 years old. Now, the treaty had changed, but there were still many problems. Someone had entered the country and was about to escape with the secrets they had found. If this person was still in the country, once he left the country, no one had the right to kill him. Crossing the border to kill would be condemned internationally. But at this moment, the jungle leading to the enemy was filled with thick fog. Such thick fog was very abnormal. In China, the surface and feng shui were the most important. There were many things that could not be explained by science. In addition, there were many ancient tombs in China. No one could imagine the underground world. This time, no one knew if someone had encountered something. It caused a thick fog to fill the air. This was the reason why the special forces invited the people from the Tang sect over. Because there were some things that only they could do. Aju carried her large military school bag and stood at the entrance of the jungle. This is the jungle that senior brother was talking about. After passing through it, we will reach our destination. Little Allah, let's go. Aju strolled in. Her walking speed was not slow. On the contrary, it was very fast. If one looked carefully, they would find that there was something on her shoes. Although Aju could not drive, she was very good at feng shui fortune-telling. It might be easy for others to get lost in this kind of tropical rainforest. But for Aju, it was not a problem at all. The Tang sect would cultivate everyone's special abilities. The current Aju was already fully equipped. She held a compass in her hand and was indeed wearing a modern military uniform. Such a contrast made people feel even cooler. In the human world, many people did not know. In ancient times, some exorcists had already become special forces soldiers. And Iju was the strongest one besides her mother. The compass shows that it's in the east. Iju stopped and glanced at her palm. Oh, the aura is a little strong. Let's continue. However, this time, Alaska didn't move. Instead, it faced a certain place on the tree and raised all its fur. Its claws were also exposed. It kept scratching the ground, as if it was ready to pounce on the tree and fight. It was blocking in front of Aju, even if the huge monster in front of it was too dangerous. As a loyal dog, it was not afraid. It didn't back down at all. Instead, it reacted in the most loyal way possible. Aju looked in the direction where Alaska was baring its teeth. There was a python wrapped around the tree. The python was very large, and its entire body was wrapped around the tree trunk. Its head was triangular, and it kept spitting out its scarlet tongue. Its eyes were extremely dangerous, and it was clearly staring at Aju. But if there was only one python, it would be fine. However, there was another 145 degrees to Aju's left. In other words, there were two pythons eyeing Aju covetously. No wonder Alaska's snow was so strong. Such a situation was really worrying. Hiss! One of the giant pythons had already begun to move. With its length and thickness, even if it did not use its poisonous fangs, it could use its body to directly wrap Aju to death. However, the giant python's attack speed was very fast. Almost at the moment it was discovered, it pounced toward Aju. The other giant python also took the opportunity to leap. This human dared to break into their territory. She was simply courting death. She was so small that it was not enough to fill the gaps between their teeth. But the moment they bit down, their jaws were suddenly pinched by something. That kind of strength was so great that they could not imagine it. There was a bang. The first giant python was thrown out by Aju with one hand. As for the second giant python, Aju grabbed its neck with one hand and pulled hard, directly stepping on its head under her feet. There was a rumbling sound. It was the sound of trees being swept down. The giant python that was stepped on by Aju crazily swung its tail, wanting to counterattack. Aju raised her fist and punched fiercely. That fist was clearly very small, but when it landed, it stunned the giant python. Then, she opened her palm, and countless Buddha beads flashed with a faint light as they fell, heavily hitting the giant python's 7 inches. After the other giant python saw the Buddha light, it wanted to turn around and escape. This girl was not an ordinary human at all. She was, before the giant python could confirm Aju's identity. Its body was heavily pressed back to its original place by the Buddha word that fell from the sky. They could not break free. They were just demons that had yet to take shape. They could not fight against the Buddha light at all. Aju looked at the giant python and squatted down. Her tiger eyes were big and beautiful. The animals here are not friendly, right, little Alla? She turned around and asked the little brother's favorite pet. Little Alla scratched its head. Do you think that all snakes, wolves, and cheetahs are like those animals in southern Tibet? The reason why they are friendly to you is not because they are really friendly, but because they have been destroyed by you so much that they can't be unfriendly. Sigh, I can't play with you anymore. After saying that, Aju stood up and said to the giant python in a dignified manner, I still have a mission to do. Look at you. It won't be long before you become a demon. You should have killed a lot of people, and there might be some soldiers among them. But Buddha is merciful. Hearing the words Buddha is merciful, the giant python raised its head and hid its hostility, trying to make itself look harmless and pitiful. However, what it did not expect was that the girl's next words were, I'll beat you to death now and let you pay back what you owe me. I'll send you to hell. Wait a minute. It shouldn't be like this. This was clearly not the line behind Buddha is merciful. The giant python stretched out its neck and let out a last low roar. Aju looked at the soft snake head and reached out to touch it. Don't thank me. I understand. If the giant python was still alive, it would definitely be angered to death by these words. After solving the problem, Aju carried the military bag on her back and looked at the empty space not far away with her naive tiger eyes. Her destination should be right in front of her. Chapter 1306. Aju's eyes were wide open as she lifted her school bag. As she walked, she said to Alaska, "I don't know what exactly is here that can touch such a huge miasma. I have to hurry over. Otherwise, Woolie's teammates will be in danger." The nagging voice gradually faded away with the unfathomable depth of the forest. At the same time, on the west side of the forest, everyone in the problem army was holding guns in their hands. They were wearing military green battle suits that were the same color as the forest. Their faces were still covered with masks, but this time, their expressions were somewhat solemn. Even the large windshield couldn't hide the worry and irritation in their eyes. "Captain, this is already our 5th lap. Every time we walk a lap, we will return to the original spot. Should we wait a little?" When Li Hailu was on a mission, he never called Bai Juan by his name. Instead, he called him Captain. The problem army was the same. They turned their heads and looked at Bai Juan. In the past 2 years, they had received many missions, but none of them were like this one. Not only did all the directional positioning instruments fail, even the police dogs that came over were trembling. The strangest thing was the fog. Logically speaking, there should be wind wherever there was fog. However, this place was so quiet that it made people feel strange. What exactly did those people take from here? Why was this mission so abnormal? Everyone had a question mark in their hearts. There were not many people in the problem army. This group, including Bai Juan, only had a total of 7 people. Bai Juan turned his head. The deep eyes that were revealed by the mask were very eye-catching. He scanned the surroundings, then squatted down and rubbed the soil on the ground. It was not pure sand, but mixed with many stone fragments. "Is there a mountain on the west side of the forest?" Bai Juan asked the commissioner in charge of intelligence who had followed them out. That person nodded. "Yes, Captain. This mountain is very old. I don't know which mountain it belongs to. There are no records in the information, but it spans the map of China and neighboring countries." "Is there an ancient tomb on the mountain?" Bai Juan asked again. That person thought for a moment. "I think so. I forgot what it was called." "I know." Bai Juan stood up, but his eyes were a little heavy. "It should be the tomb of the Ghost Mother." Ghost Mother? What was that? All the problem soldiers turned their heads and looked at Bai Juan. Why did their captain even know about these things? Bai Juan's voice was indifferent. "There are records in the Buddhist scriptures that the Ghost Mother is also known as Hariti, which is transliterated in Sanskrit as the Empress of the River Pear. In ancient times, a Buddha was born in the royal resident city, so a celebration was held. 500 people attended the celebration. Along the way, they met a pregnant woman who was accompanying them. Unexpectedly, she had a miscarriage midway and all 500 people left her behind. She swore an oath that in her next life, she would reincarnate into princely resident city and devour all the children there. This was where Ghost Mother Ninechild had her miscarriage. It was said that her nascent divinity had become a Buddha. Her followers built a tomb for her in order to pay tribute to her, all so that they could one day see her return." "Captain, you even read Buddhist scriptures? They really can't understand the world of a top student. Since this Ghost Mother has become a Buddha, why is this place still like this? Shouldn't all Buddhas be good?" Bai Juan looked at the fog that filled the sky. "Not necessarily. When you leave later, don't look in front. Look under your feet and feel the thickness under your feet. Follow behind me and walk in a row. Yes. Although the problem soldiers had many questions in their hearts, they knew that their captain must have his reasons for letting them do this. Therefore, no one said anything. They lined up in a row, closed their eyes, and walked forward bit by bit with their legs close to each other. That kind of speed was very slow, and there was an indescribable torture. Especially when you couldn't look in front and lowered your head to grope forward, there was always a sense of insecurity. Fortunately, these people were all Special Forces soldiers. Even if they encountered such a thing that could not be explained by science, they were not afraid to lose their minds. In fact, whether it was novels or movies, they would all tell us the same thing. When danger came, don't think about how to escape. Because you would never be able to escape. Instead, you had to find a breakthrough. The more stable you were, the more likely you would be to survive to the end. Just like Bai Jun and the others were now, if one of them did not have strong willpower and wanted to retreat, what they would face might be an infinite circuit or something even more terrifying. After walking like this for an unknown period of time, Bai Jun's military boots finally stopped. Then, he bent down again and touched the soil on the ground. It was much more delicate than before. It was obvious that they had changed places. That's enough. Bai Jun stood up straight and ordered, "All of you, open your eyes. First, look at the ground under your feet clearly. Then, walk forward." Yes. Everyone was very cautious. The first moment they opened their eyes, they looked at their feet. There was a person in the middle who was very dangerous because if he was a little further away, it was very likely that he would miss a step and fall to the cliff beside him. Fortunately, the other person did not walk directly. There was a snake coiled under his feet. No one knew whether the snake was alive or dead, but it just lay there softly. "We've finally walked out." The problem soldiers were very excited. "Captain, how did you do it?" Bai Jun glanced at his feet. "The soil is different. Under any situation that affects vision and hearing, only the sense of touch is the most accurate. The magnetic field here is not right, causing us to hallucinate when we walk. We feel that we are walking in a straight line, but in fact, we have already circled around. That's why we return to the original place again and again. Using the geology of the soil to determine the direction, there won't be a big problem." Not only the problem soldiers, even the team member who was in charge of intelligence was dumbfounded. He had a look of wonder on his face. Why did he have research on what kind of soil was like? Weren't they soldiers? When did they become top archaeologists? Li Hailu walked over and patted their shoulders comfortingly. "It's okay, you still have me, a bad student, to accompany you. There's no other way." When the captain was in high school, he was recommended to study abroad. He has won many awards in the country. Since he was young, he has been a pervert. Other than books, he is not interested in anything else. He started studying English at the age of 7. Don't learn from him. Vice Captain. Someone suddenly interrupted Li Hailu's words and pointed behind him. What is that thing?" Chapter 1307. Someone suddenly interrupted Li Hailu's words and pointed behind him. What is that thing?" Perhaps it was because his expression was too panicked, or perhaps it was because the uncomfortable feeling just now was still lingering in people's hearts. Everyone looked in the direction his finger was pointing at. There were indeed things there. One after another, they stood in the thick fog as if they were hiding in the surroundings and looking at them. At first, they did not notice it. Now, it looked a little like a human. No, that was not right. How could there be a human here? But if it was not a human, what could it be? In an instant, the problem soldiers raised the guns in their hands. Their spirits were tense to the extreme, just to deal with the situation that might appear in a while. However, nothing happened. The strange thing was that those people did not seem to move at all, and each of them looked very stiff. It was as if they were stuck there. The problem soldiers looked at each other. They felt that this place was very strange. If it were not for the captain, they might have stayed in place for the rest of their lives. But now, they had come to such a damned place. The snakes on the ground were also very strange. They seemed to be hibernating, but they also seemed to be not. "Captain, what should we do now? The distance is not close, and there is also a fog between us. But how could there be people here?" Li Hailu also gritted his teeth. He really did not want to say the word people, because the fact that people would appear here was too strange. Bai Juan narrowed his eyes. That shouldn't be a person. Not a person. What is it? Li Hailu trembled. To be honest, no matter how mighty and majestic he was not as calm as Bai Juan when it came to things in the unknown. In fact, no one would do what Bai Juan did. Li Hailu did not understand what was going on with him. Could it be that everyone who had been to the mountain was like this? Or was it that all the direct descendants of the Tang family were like this? In their eyes, were there no dirty things? Bai Juan tilted his head and raised his gun to the side. It looks like something that has been set up. It looks a little like a doll. Mannequin. Li Hailu sighed in relief. I thought you would say dead body or ghost or something like that. Bai Juan raised his eyebrows. Although I can't see clearly here, one thing is certain. These human-like things don't wear clothes. Whether they are corpses or ghosts, they will wear clothes. If they don't wear white clothes that are fluttering in the wind, they won't appear. Therefore, it's not the kind of thing you think it is. The luster on their bodies just now should be the wood wax that was applied on them previously. Li Hailu. As expected of Master Bai. Even at this point, he could still analyze what the other party was based on, whether they were wearing clothes or not. A few people followed Bai Juan and walked over. There were many snakes in this place. It was a bit like entering a snake cave. Most of the snakes were hanging on the trees. They were all lishless, but their eyes were more vicious than the venomous snakes they had seen before. And the strangest thing was, every snake here seemed to be growing. That was right. It was growth. For example, when someone stepped on it just now, the snake was still 40 centimeters long. Now, it had grown to about 42 centimeters. If it was others, they might not be able to see such a subtle difference, but they were all Special Forces soldiers, so they were very sensitive to distance and length. How could this be? If anything could grow at such a fast rate, it would be impossible. That was simply unimaginable. Moreover, only this circle of snakes looked like this. The snakes in other places did not look like this. However, the terrifying thing was that many snakes had begun to crawl towards that place. Bai Juan was right. There were puppets standing there. One after another, there were many puppets. They were actually not tall, but there was something below them. On the contrary, each of them was very short. They had exquisite small faces and bodies that had not grown up yet. It was obvious that these puppets were children who had not grown up yet. Judging from their clothes and workmanship, these puppets did not seem to be made now. They should have been made for a certain period of time. They looked a little like the Tang dynasty, but they were not completely the same. Because some of the clothes were even wearing kasaya, they had the style of the Western region. However, the problem soldiers were not in the mood to look at these puppets at all. All their attention was on the snakes. Every single one of them was growing bit by bit, making those who saw them feel anxious. "Captain, what should we do now?" someone asked Bai Juan. Originally, their mission was to take back the things that the foreign enemy had taken out of their territory and keep China's secret. But now, not only could they not pass through this place, they had also discovered such a thing. This place was like a huge nutrient pool, and it had a deep influence on the snakes. If things were allowed to develop, more and more snakes would come over. When they grew to a certain extent and crawled out, they would all be giant pythons. A giant python might be easier to deal with for them. They could use a gun to hit its head or break it 7 inches. But for the peaceful world outside the jungle, for those white-collar workers who were still working, the old people who were eating breakfast, and the students who were reading books, it would be an unprecedented disaster. They could not let these things escape. Absolutely not. Bai Juan also clenched his right hand tightly. The handle of the gun was stained with blood. "Those puppets are very strange." "Puppets?" Li Hailu was anxious. "Captain, why are you still concerned about puppets at this time?" Bai Juan raised his eyes and glanced at him. "The snakes don't dare to approach them. Moreover, to me, some things that can exist for so many years without any damage are not too normal." After Bai Juan's reminder, everyone finally reacted. Those puppets were indeed not normal. Especially those pairs of eyes, it was as if there was really a child's soul living inside. At this moment, there was a cracking sound. Someone and something moved. They took a closer look. It was those puppets. They seemed to be pulled by invisible strings as they walked towards them step by step. Not only that, they seemed to be singing some kind of song. In the beginning, the problem core wanted to open fire. But when these puppets opened their mouths, they seemed to have lost their senses. They only felt that the voice was extremely pleasant to hear. It was like the sound of Sanskrit coming from an ancient temple, but it was also like someone was telling the most ancient story. Wave after wave, it was very sad and gentle. It could make people feel an unprecedented peace from the bottom of their hearts. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.